that's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May. But I know I'm gonna change that tune when I'm back on top in June. I said that's life.
Take two.
Take two. Take three.
I feel like the first intro we did was good though, but Gary had to move. Not Gary Bell though, because we have two Garys on the podcast, which we established the first time, and I feel like the first intro we did, even though the other Gary didn't get to hear it because it kept cutting out for him, it was really good and solid. But I feel like we're not going to be able to match that, so we should probably just get right into it. We got Mr. Gary Biggs on the podcast. Hello, sir.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you missed our cocaine story of a guy that wandered into the hotel the last night of the expo with no shoes on at, 2, 3 in the morning, trying to buy a drink at the bar, who was clearly hammered. Nobody knows how he got there. Tried bumming some cigarettes off Tom, tried buying Tom a drink, even though, again, we established the bar was shut down. There was no bartender, and he just kept trying to buy people drinks. I don't know how he got home. I don't know if he's here on Earth with us today, but it was a fun little last story of the expo for us.
He may have had one of those red line drinks. Because let me tell you, once we got out of town about 5, and we were going to make it to El Paso, and I'm dragging. It's like 7. I'm like, I got to have something to keep me going the next few hours. So I just took one drink, and it wired me to El Paso. We got our hotel. I didn't go to sleep all night, and I was good all day the next day and next night until I got back to Tulsa. I mean, it kept me up the whole time.
Those things are no joke.
No joke.
Sounds like liquid cocaine.
Yes.
Might be.
Jeez.
Absolutely.
So I don't know how far back we want to go. I know that, Gary, you've been on some other podcasts and told your complete story of how you got into car audio, but maybe you could kind of give us a recap of how you got hooked on car audio and what got you started.
Yeah, so I graduated high school in 1987, and a good friend of mine, Pat Cunningham, he had a Monte Carlo SS, and it just had the stock system in it or whatever. Then one day he was going down the road, and I could hear him boom, boom. I mean, I didn't know what it was. I mean, that was my first experience to it. So I hooked up with Pat. He had a pair of Rockford Punch 12s in the back of his car, and he had already gotten bit and was hooked, and he wanted something bigger. So I actually bought his woofers used from him, and started. And before I ever got them installed, I didn't realize I needed an amp. You know what I mean? So I had the woofers, but I didn't have no way of powering it. So I had so this is in 1987, I had a 79 Mustang. So anyway, so I started hanging out at the same shop that he hung out at, the hi-fi shop in Lawton, Oklahoma. And, it kind of all snowballed from there. I'm sure you guys know Bart Deal. Bart Deal actually worked there. He left, and when he left there, he went to Rockford, and then on to PPI, and now he's at Kicker. But when he left that store, I was hanging out there so much. They needed somebody, and they're like, man, this dude's practically living here. Let's just pay him a few bucks while he's hanging out. So, Bob Zwan, he recently passed this past summer. But he offered me a job, and I started out in sales. And, all the guys there, they all became, great friends and all that good stuff. And I had I don't know if I told this part of the story a long time ago or not, but there was a guy named Vince Guerrero, and Vince was he was probably about 15 and a half, and he comes riding up on his bicycle, props his bike up against the outside door, and comes in, and everybody scattered like ants. They left it up to me to talk to this dude. So he's obviously been in a bunch, probably, talking their ear off. So he comes in, and I don't know any better. I've only been there a few days. So I'm talking to him, and he's telling me that he's fixing to get a big inheritance and some stuff, and he's going to buy him a new Mustang GT, and he wants to do a big system in it. And we had a demo truck. It was kind of the mini trucking craze. It was called Devastation, and it had like 418s in it. And so, I go out and I demo the truck, and he's like, "That's what I want." And so I work him up this big system now, for a Mustang, which I had a Mustang, so I knew what the car was all about. So I worked him up a system with 418s, a punch 150 on each 18, a bunch of mids and highs, and a bunch of 45s. I mean, it was a big deal. It was about $16,000, and $16,000 in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's that equal to now today? That's somebody coming in and spending 30, 35 maybe. I don't know. So I kind of had that all quoted up, and so the kid leaves, and so I'm going over it with the owner of the store, Bob, and he's like, "Yeah." I didn't realize it at the time, but they were all just jabbing me because they just thinking this kid's full of shit.
Yeah, 100%.
And so he's going over everything. He goes, "Well, it looks pretty good, but you forgot some important parts." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Well, there's no high output alternator. No, you need all the big power cables. No reason to use pre-made RCA cables. You need to we need to do custom built preamp cables and so all that." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I sit down and I get out we were a big Rockford house, so I get out the perfect interface book and I'm putting all that together. Well, I add up like another $3,000. So, I've got it there. I got me a little notebook started. The kid comes in a few days, and I said, "Hey, I went over your system and we forgot some stuff. Need to add some stuff to do it." And he's like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." And so the kid disappears. A month goes by, 2 months goes by, I don't know, quite a while. And suddenly, blue and silver, brand new Mustang GT pulls up by the front door, and this kid gets out.
Let's go.
And I'm like, "You got to be kidding." And so I went to work there. It was in the late summer, early fall. And so now it is it's about spring break time, like right about now. Because Bob, the owner, his folks lived in Vail, Colorado. So he was fixing to go to Vail for spring break weekend and spend time with his parents. And so now it's time to do this big job. And I was like, man, I wanted to install. You know what I mean? I wanted to install this system. So I told Bob, I said, "Hey, he's ready to do this, but he wants me to do the install." And Bob's like, Bob had kind of a funny little laugh. And so we traded. One of the guys in the back, Doug, came up front and managed the front of the store and handled sales. And me and one of the other guys, David, we worked in the back. And I worked on that Mustang all day, every day. David and I worked on it at night, and we did this install in like 2.5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And it was a huge, you know what I mean? It would be a huge task today to do it, let alone then. But man, I was just so ecstatic, you know what I mean? And I wanted to show Bob that I could do it. I kind of tricked him to get back there. I wanted to, the kid, Vince, I wanted him to have a cool system. And I kind of wanted to prove myself because I had already had, a pretty nice little system in my car. It had like a pair of 15s. I had a motorized amp rack and stuff, which was like unheard of at the time. And I made that motorized amp rack using a Sears cordless drill. And a piece of all thread. And if you can imagine, I had this amp rack that moved up and down out of the enclosure. And so I welded a nut onto a piece of back strap, and it was on the bottom of that amp rack. So when the all thread spun, it loosened and it went up, and you reversed it and it spun and it tightened it and brought it back down. So it was like, I didn't know about a linear actuator. I don't know if there were linear actuators then, but I made my own. It was like super cool. Nobody around southern Oklahoma, North Texas had ever seen or anything like that. So it was way cool. But anyways, I wanted to prove that I could do this big system. And it was cool. It turned out great. And Vince and I became great friends. We did several systems for him. When I left and went to a different shop down across the border in North Texas, he came down there and we redid his car. And then we got into sound quality, and we were chasing Iasca points, going to Colorado Springs every other weekend and stuff. And so he, like always, like all of us, some of your best friends are, the car audio crew that we grew up with and hang out with. So that was really my first kind of start, as like professionally in the business. But, like I said, I had several little systems in my Mustang, before that.
It's funny because typically you got to wait a really long time in your career to get the client who you think is full of shit, and then they end up having the money to do the job, and you're completely surprised. Yeah, it took me a long time to find that client, which I did find that client.
And then on top of that, you got to think, if that's 87, 88, how much was a brand new Mustang back then? Like a fully loaded Mustang was probably 12 or 15 grand, and then he's willing to like match that in audio gear.
Yes. And what it was is he was from Guam, and I don't know what the exact story was, but when he turned 16, he got this big lump of money, and he bought that car, he bought all that audio, and he bought systems for several other of his friends that we did. I mean, he just, that's what you do when you got more money than you know what to do with, I guess.
That's awesome.
But whenever we were, I'll jump ahead maybe kind of, as I was running around with him, and we came up to Tulsa to the Iasca finals, and he competed, and he ended up getting like 6th place. I think he was like 1 point from 5th, and which was like 1 point from getting on stage to get a trophy, which was amazing because I didn't really know what I was doing. But what's interesting about that trip, that set the standard, set the pace for the rest of my career. And I even think about this even just a few weeks ago when I was working on my car a little bit, changing out some of the product in it. We were sitting at Applebee's one night of the Tulsa finals, and we were sitting at one table, and behind us, I didn't know it until we just overheard them talking, were some judges. And it apparently were the judges that were judging maybe the top pro class, because they were judging the Richards Grand National. And I overheard them talking about how, yeah, man, I took off a half of a point because one of the Phillips screwdrivers on, that held one of the amps in wasn't lined up perfectly straight. It was a little off. Oh, and talking about, they were talking about zip ties and wire ties and different things. And I'm like, oh, man, I had no idea. So when I went home, that was my standard. I made sure and lined up every screw and zip ties. I had little blocks of wood in my toolbox, and those blocks of wood were just as important to me as my crimpers or screwdriver, because that's how I put that in the car, and I would space my zip ties off that block of wood. I was doing that, like I said, in 1987. I don't know what everybody else was, but
I was just born in 1987.
Yeah, right.
Just a twinkle in his mama's eye.
Yeah. So, just, hearing that conversation, out of everything I would, and I've said it before, that was probably one of the best pieces of advice that anybody gave that they didn't even know they gave me, is whoever those judges were talking about, the points they were able to take off for stuff like that.
Shout out to Applebee's.
Yep.
You wouldn't be where you were if it wasn't for
without
Applebee's.
Right.
That's what I take away from that. Spend more time in Applebee's. It'll lead to a long career in car audio.
Right.
So did you go back to that car that you did, the Mustang, and you saw all the screw heads, and you're like, oh no, I'm surprised I got a point.
So that was my first experience of seeing the Speakerworks Grand National. Mm-hmm. There was also another Grand National there that belonged to Holly Mungle from Canada. I think he was up from around the eastern side of Canada. He had a Grand National and a Ferrari there competing. So being exposed to both of those Grand Nationals, there was a few other guys. I don't remember the guy's name, but the car was like, I think he might have had a Cutlass, maybe a Monte Carlo. It was nicknamed Goosebumps. Does that ring a bell? Gary,
barely.
Maybe?
Yeah, you're just a hair before my day there.
Okay, yeah. So being exposed to a couple of those G-body cars and everybody oohing and awing over the Grand National, you know what I mean? Because that was the thing. When I got home, I was going to get me a Grand National. Well, no, I wasn't going to get a Grand National. So I figured out pretty quick I could not afford a Grand National. But I got the next best thing, a regular Buick Regal that a really good friend of mine, Ed Martin, had. He also became a great friend of mine through the hi-fi shop, working on his building his system. He had a little 88, the GMC Jimmy, the little mini Blazer at the time, and we did a big wall with 418s and all Rockford amps and stuff, and so he had this Regal, and so I bought it from him. And right off the bat, I mean, my goal was, I was talking to Ada and shared a term with him a few weeks ago. I said, man, my goal was to build a SQ dragster from that moment on. That car, in my mind, really was going to have nothing to do in life other than be sound quality car. I wanted to, and that was just my goal, was to build the coolest thing I could. And the car was white at the time. And my first big system in it eventually being all Orion, which when we came up to Tulsa for the finals one year, it got in a parking lot. My car, trailer, and truck were all stolen, and the car was stripped. And I ended up getting the car back over a few months, but it was totally stripped. I mean, they took the fenders off, the motor, the doors, the trunk, all the stereo. I mean, I literally just got back the body. And, so I nicknamed it the junkyard car for many years because all the parts to rebuild it, came from probably 20 different cars from the junkyard.
Wow.
But yeah, so I started on that, never really looked back at the Mustang, the system in it finally kind of got taken out, and I drove it. And then once I started driving the Regal all the time, I ended up selling the Mustang to a buddy of mine, and I really always wish I kind of kept it.
How did that system progress in the Regal? Like, what were the stages of it? I mean, obviously there's been a few paint jobs and many systems.
Yeah, so everybody asks me about the paint, and I can tell you there's been a small fortune spent on paint on that car. So the car was white originally. It was a white limited. It had a vinyl roof on it, and it had a maroon interior. But unlike most of the Regals, it didn't have the pillowy seats and stuff, the ones that kind of real puffy. It had a sport buckets in it and a console, just like the T-Types and the Grand Nationals had. So it was really interesting. I always wondered how it had that interior package in it, because it didn't really make sense. I'd never seen another one like that. So the car was originally white. It was the original white paint job. And then once I started working on it, I had a buddy of mine. By this time, I've moved to Wichita Falls, Texas, just about an hour down the road from Lawton at the hi-fi shop where I originally worked. So I'm down at that store, and the first thing I did that I totally regret is I cut a hole and put a sunroof in. And I can remember like yesterday the roof just bouncing when I'm cutting across there. I'm surprised it wasn't wavy as an ocean. So I put the sunroof in, and then I put spow window kits in it, which are still in it, which kind of started giving up on me last week at Master Tech. I'm going to have to figure out a way of replacing them. So I had it repainted by a good friend of mine down there, and he painted it white. And it was a Corvette white paint. And it was so bright you could hardly look at it when the sun was bouncing off of it. And so I started building the system in it. Like I said, I was exposed to Richard's Grand National, but I didn't understand it. With the horns under the dash, I didn't know it was horns. I just knew there were speakers under there. And in my mind, I thought maybe it was like a 4-inch and a tweeter with a cool long grill or something. I didn't know. So I go back, and what I did is I built boxes under my dash, but it was for a 4 and a tweeter. Because I just didn't, that's what I thought was in there. I didn't know any better. And it actually sounded pretty good, or at least I thought it did. So it had a pair of Eton 4-inch mids, an Eton tweeter under the dash. And if you would have looked at it, you would have thought it was waveguides. And then in the back, I had gotten Orion baskets, had them gold plated. sent them back to Orion and had them put together. And then I had all of the GS Gold Series amplifiers. And back then, when you ordered them, they'd engrave your name on it. So it was GS 100, designed and built for Gary Biggs or whatever. And
where are those amps now?
Well, I'll get to that here in a second.
Okay,
if we don't run down a rabbit trail and forget. So in the trunk was an isobaric box for those 2 gold-plated tins. There was a big GS 500, which was kind of like the big 2100, and then 2 of the GS 100s, which would be kind of like the HCCA 225. And then I had all Eclipse, the GFO fiber optic, system in it. Sometimes I think I was really far thinking on things, because what I did in the trunk, if you could imagine, and it's crazy, but this is what I did. I took cardboard boxes and I put it on a table saw and I cut them 1/2 inch strips. And what I did is all the way around the perimeter from the floor of the trunk up to the edge of the trunk where like the rubber gasket goes, I stood those cardboard strips up. Basically, I made my own popsicle wall. Mm-hmm. And super glued them at the base, super glued it at the top, smoothed it in, put a layer of fiberglass mat on it, smoothed it in with Bondo. I remember sitting in that car, sanding, and I was like, dude, you're a dumbass. There's a lot of sanding involved here. What were you thinking? And then I wrapped it in vinyl, so there was a window where the box was, and then the amps mounted, and then a flush trim piece that sit down there. So at the time, there really wasn't nothing else at the time like that. Everybody was, paneling in their trunks and stuff at that time. So it was really kind of cutting edge, I always thought. So I get it done. We're running around the country. We're hosting contests at our store so that, to get points and all that kind of stuff. And that was the first time that I met Chris Lewis down in from Austin with Pyramid Audio. He came up and was a judge. And man, talking to that guy that first weekend, I felt like I learned so much about just sound quality. You know what I mean? Kind of what a car is supposed to sound like, or what what imaging and stuff. I had no idea before that. Anyway, so chasing points, and then went to Tulsa, and then the car gets stolen, and I get it back, and it's just, it's heartbreaking. When I went up to Tulsa to pick it up, they actually loaded it with a forklift and set it on the trailer, and I just put tie straps around it like hillbilly and drug it back to Wichita Falls. I downloaded it beside my house, and I lived on a corner, and the road was a pretty popular road. And man, all of a sudden, out of the blue, everybody's stopping by the shop, because we used to drag race big time back then. We had a little 1/4-mile section on the south side of town that we'd drag race, and I had nitrous on the car, and I couldn't even. McDonald's was 1 block from our shop, and I couldn't even leave to go to lunch 1 block away without ripping nitrous for that 1 block. So addictive. So everybody just thought I wrecked the car. They thought that, I must have, wrecked or something. And I was like, no, man, it got stolen. So I went and bought another one and started robbing parts off of it to build it back together. Once I finally got it put together, there was a red fender, a brown fender, a yellow hood. The car body was white, a maroon trunk lid. Literally almost every color of a Regal that there was. In fact, it kind of became my mission as I was looking for parts to find a different color part, just for the fun of it. So then my wife's, by this time I'm married to Sharon, and her dad, did paint and body work. So he repainted it for me, painted it white. And so now it's kind of got its 3rd paint job, white. Its original paint job, and then white, and then white again. And then we moved to Tulsa. Oh, during all that, I developed a relationship with Rob Rice, the owner of Car Toys up here, because I'm traveling back and forth doing stuff for Crime Stoppers and going to court, because they found the guys that stole it. So I'm coming back and forth. I'm like, these guys are going to pay. You know what I mean? So I made a relationship with Rob, moved up here, went to work at Car Toys, and really that's when a lot of things started happening, because we had customers up here that were willing to let me experiment. any of my crazy ideas, they were willing to pay for it. So it was awesome, you know. So I became good friends with the guys at Carefree Highway Truck and Paint and Body, Jeff Lander and Bob Lander and Eddie Lander. And so I was, you know, doing lots of builds for them and the hot rods they were doing, and that, you know, I was really getting kind of involved in that scene up here. And I was like, man, that orange is so cool on one of the trucks that they had done. And Bob's like, Gary, you want to paint your car orange? I said, man, I think I do. He's like, all right, get it out here. So I was like, well, what's it cost? He goes, you ain't got to worry about that. So, you know, we became good friends. So anyways, I take the car out there. We blow it apart. I mean, not only did we blow it apart, but we did our own air ride. You know, and there wasn't such thing as an air ride kit or any of that stuff at that time. This is like 1998, 97, 98, 99-ish, 98, 99. So we did our own air ride, and I mean, blew the car apart, put it on a rotisserie, and at that time I did some pretty crazy stuff again. While it was on the rotisserie, we rolled it upside down. I sanded the inside of the headliner. I put a layer of fiberglass mat. I put about 30 pounds of one solid layer of lead buckshot, another layer of fiberglass mat. Then I took Dynamat sound deadening. I cut it into 2-inch squares, and I made a checkerboard. And then I put another layer of mat. So the roof on that thing, honestly,
wow,
is probably about a 1/2 inch thick. I mean, wow. You can take your fist and hit the top of it. And like today we had hail up here, and I was like, man, I need to pull it out of the shop and put my truck in the shop, you know, because I ain't got nothing to worry about. So, you know, because I was, you know, being around different industry people and just understanding strength and, you know, flex, you lose sound and just all that kind of stuff. So the roof became super solid, rolled it over on its side, did the same thing with the rear quarters and the side panels.
That's
the
the
same
way to
thing
do it
with
right there.
Yeah, and 99% of the time you can't do that because, you know, guys are driving their car or they're just not where they can or not think about it. So I added a lot of weight to the car, but not just weight. You know, it's one thing to add some Dynamat to keep it from vibrating, but man, I added strength and rigidity to this car.
You added buckshot to the car.
Buckshot,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah, yeah. And it was funny because
mass right there.
Yeah, you know, the firewall, just everything. So we painted the car orange. The theme of it came from the Pontiac LeSabre that Orion built, the purple one. It had some graphics on the side of it, kind of mild graphics, and so we kind of copied those graphics a little bit and put on the car when it was orange. So I tore that car apart like in the spring of that year, 99, right, like literally right after finals when we got home from finals. So I mean, we're running, it's the end of the summer, and I've got no points. You got to get your points for finals. So we had a contest at our shop. And so I just got it running like the night before our contest. And I had that 383 stroker motor in it. You know, it was built to run open header. So it was louder than a NASCAR, man. It was ridiculous. So cool. I mean, when you walk around that car, you could just hear the motor, you know, it sounded like a sewing machine. Yes, it was so awesome. And so, but nobody had seen the car, just only our guys at work. So it's almost at the end of the day for the judging, and I start that thing, and I back it out, and I just ripped across the parking lot and came back, and James Feltenberger was doing sound quality. And there's nothing in that car except a seat and a radio laying in the floorboard and a 3.5 magnet to the transmission home. And he's like, he's looking at me, he's looking at that car, he's like, boy. He just said it like 5 times, boy. It was so funny. I said, by the way, to start it, you got to grab that button, you know, between your legs under the seat. And so he reaches down, he hits that thing, blah, 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 blah. Scared the crap out of him. It was so funny. It was awesome. So, you know, I competed. I got my points. And then I found out that I could actually compete like with my truck to earn points that would transfer to my car. So I ran around to a bunch of shows, you know, with the stock system. So I got the car done. It was all orange. Went to finals in Oklahoma City that, drove in the rain, getting down there that night. So that was that color orange. And then right after that, I left Car Toys and went to work at Kicker. We went out to Phoenix for the Car Sound Magazine's Wild West Challenge. You remember that?
Yep.
So that was a winner take all, $5,000 entry fee, everybody against everybody, winner take all. And so it was me, Wilson Adcock with the Reaper, Steve Brown with his blue BMW, and 4 or 5 other guys. I don't know. I think there was 7 of us total. Anyway, I won the show, but they had it set up on one of the ball fields there at like one of the training ball fields. So like somebody was sitting at like Brownie, I think was at home plate. I was at like first base. I think Will was at third base, and we were all reverse backed into like the pointing the pitcher's mound from the backside. And so the whole time, Greg Davis is like, so they had a big stage set up in center field, big band. The stands were full of people. It was a really cool deal. And so when we gave our presentation, we had a microphone. We gave it to the whole fan base. And so they did, presentation was scored, installation was scored, sound quality was scored, fit and finish was scored, which was really, I didn't think about at the time, but it's kind of a big deal because every one of those cars there were, one-off, blown apart, built for a purpose cars. It wasn't just a stock car. So they wanted to see how well they were put back together, that type of thing. So Greg's like, dude, you got to start the car. You got to start the car. Because, I mean, it was badass. It sounded like a NASCAR. And I was like, no, because I'm kind of, I don't know, a little shy about that kind of thing, kind of sort of what have you. So anyway, so when I'm talking, somebody said, I'm telling them about the engine and everything, and somebody hollered, start it up. I'm like, all right, you asked for it. So keep in mind, my car is sitting on first base, doors open, trunk open, hood open, the trunk's facing home or facing the pitcher's rubber. And so I just reach in, I'm sitting in there, my butt's like half on the seat. And now keep in mind, it's a 383 stroker motor built by Jerry Robertson, one of the guys here, probably, in my opinion, the best motor builder in this area. He probably built 5 or 6 motors for me for different things. He built a big motor for Alma's Bronco and stuff. I mean, they never leak a drop of oil. Awesome. So this is, a pretty high performance motor, and it's got a 4,000 RPM stall converter. So now you probably know, anybody thinking motor guys think they know where I'm going with this. So I get in there, I start it, and it's sitting there, bop, 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 bop. And then so I reach down with my foot and I rev it up. Well, it must have been in reverse. No, safety neutral kill switch. So when I was revving it up, apparently I revved it up to about 4K. It did a burnout halfway to the pitcher's rubber, about a 4-inch rut on 2 ruts in the ground all the way back. And I'm like, oh, they're going to kick us out of here. Anyway, so the groundkeepers came. They were not happy, but man, they had that thing fixed in no time at all. So that's a side story, but a wind came up and I had a kicker backdrop, behind my car on the display. And the wind came up and knocked that display over, and it put a big old nasty scratch down the passenger side of the car. So when we came home, that's when it went back to the paint shop to do the kicker paint job that was darker orange, almost red, with the graphics and stuff. So that's when it got the kicker paint job. At that time, we did I went ahead and did the frame, painted the frame candy apple red, did some more, just did more work to it, more I could afford to do a little more at that time. And then, a few years down the road when I left Kicker and went to work for JBL, couldn't have a kicker paint job on the car. So again, blew it 100% apart. I probably spent, I don't know, the whole time I was at the paint shop, I was out there every day. All the rivets that are on the car, I hit them with the airbrush. I helped. The undercarriage of the car, I don't know how many gallons of Bondo and smoothing. I mean, the undercarriage of the car is just as smooth and painted like the top of the car. Painted the frame plate, to match the rest of the stuff. So that's kind of how it got made its life through all those paint jobs, and why, kind of, sort of.
To have that many wild paint jobs on one car is pretty crazy. I always think back and, you can kind of remember some of the wildest paint jobs you've ever seen. And when multiple of those are on the same exact car, it's pretty wild.
If I had it to do over with again, it would have been different cars. I'd have a stable of them.
Right?
I'd have a stable of them.
How did the famous Car Audio and Electronics magazine cover with you and the girls come about?
Oh, so that's funny. So at the time, Ben was the editor-in-large at Car Audio. I don't recall his last name. Ben O?
Oh, yep.
Yep, Ben O. So we saw each other. I met him at one of the finals or something. He's walking around taking pictures. And, and we just hit it off really good. Out of the blue one day, he calls me up and he goes, "Man, I got this crazy idea." And I'm like, "Oh, what?" I had no idea. And he goes, "Man, we want to do an article on your car and do a big, center, spread deal, and we want to put you on the cover." I'm like, "All right, let's do this." He goes, "But in OU had just won national championship, and so he had this idea." He goes, "Man, I want to put you in a OU jersey and a whole bunch of gold and bling, and we're gonna get some hot chicks and whatever, So so it just kind of started as a kind of a just something for fun. But then I added my own twist. So next door to us at Car Toys was a jewelry shop called Moody's Jewelry, and I was friends with those guys. So even though it didn't look like it, I probably had $500,000 worth of jewelry on.
Oh gosh,
expensive, awesome. High-end stuff. Yeah, the ring, the watch. I mean, it didn't look like much. I'm gonna have to
relook at the cover. You posted that cover not too long ago, didn't you?
I'm looking for it right now. I was gonna try to share it, but I can't find it.
I feel like it would give better context if I could see the picture as we're talking.
Oh, it's so good.
We need a producer for the show. That way they can prop it up on the screen. Right.
So we're doing.
Jay missing out again.
And so both of those girls actually worked at the jewelry store next door as well.
Really?
And they were also Bud Light girls. And so I was like, since I knew them, hey, y'all interested in this? Oh, yeah. So we're doing all that, but here's the funny part. So I'm thinking, man, I need like a wad of money. I need like a couple of grand. I need a bunch of $100 bills. And so Don Tessier, the manager of our store at the time, he's like, "No, man, $1 bills, y'all, $1 bills." So that's where that stack of $1 bills came from. It was just kind of a joke. And that's one of the pictures that they actually used.
That's awesome.
And then not long after that, Mobile Electronics changed the way they were doing their covers. And I think, and I may be wrong, but Solomon called me up and he goes, "Man, we got this new idea. We're going to start putting, installer of the year, the top installers on the cover, and doing start profiling the industry, the guys, instead of putting a picture of a radio on the cover or something like that." He goes, "We want to do something a little different than your last cover. We want to put, you need a tux and whatever." So then that's when we did that other one for Mobile Electronics with wearing the tux and a Dodge Viper that I had just done a big system for a client. So yeah, a lot of fun.
I'm literally trying to find that picture right now, so I can.
I'm still hunting for the picture.
All the details that you told us about.
Let me see.
Even if we got to pause and edit, I'm searching.
Yeah,
did you post it, Gary?
We can pause for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it here pretty close on my phone because I just took a picture of.
I'm going through your timeline trying to find it.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, here it is, y'all.
Because I feel like there's more details that you haven't talked about.
That's hard. Matt, did you see that when he held it up on the phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I need to zoom in and look around because I feel like there's plenty of other details that are not talked about.
Do you remember what year that was? Can you see on there?
Yeah, so this was...
If it was Ben, it's got to be like...
This was 5/28/01. So it was...
I was going to say 01/02 and on.
May of 01.
You missed it. We used to have a poker game at Benno's house. And like him, Eric Holdaway, Mike Fu would come by sometimes. I I think Todd Matsubura came once. Yato came once. It was like the Car Audio Insider poker game back in the day. It was good times. All right. We ready to get back to it, Matt? Are you okay?
No, hold on. I found it. What watch did you have on? Do you remember?
Man, that was no, it was a Rolex. And of course, I don't know which model or whatever, but I remember, I can't remember his name now, the manager of Moody's. He's like, you know what? You can lose all of this, but don't lose the watch.
Oh, man. You probably felt so silly standing there like that with all that.
Yeah. It was stupid.
Money on your person.
Yeah, it was stupid. And that was actually in the wide open in the parking lot between our store and the jewelry store.
Was there a security guard or anything, or you just
no,
just hanging out?
That's great.
So crazy.
But you asked, you said something a while ago. We talked about the paint jobs, about the different audio systems. So when the car was stolen, literally, they gutted the car. There was no AC box, nothing. Everything under the hood was gone. So that's where the underhood...
Some damn good thieves, huh?
So come to find out, it was a group of guys here in Tulsa. And what they would do is they would target vehicles traveling through. They would, steal it or break into them or whatever, because generally people are traveling through, insurance pays off on it, and away they go. Well, here, dumb me, I've got this car, I got no insurance on it except like liability insurance, you know what I mean? So my whole deal was like, well, if you think you found them, let's prosecute them if we can. So the guys, actually, 2 of them, went to jail. They got out of jail. They paid me restitution for a few years. It wasn't very much money before they got in trouble and went back to jail. And a funny story, on one of my days off after, working up here at Car Toys, I thought I would just kind of go around and check out some of the other shops. So I go in this shop that's kind of midtown Tulsa, and I'm looking around, and I see this enclosure over here, and it's got a clear back on it. It's got a clear front on it. It's divided 1/3 to 2/3. It's got a couple ports sticking up. They were clear ports, and the inside was trimmed out in white Formica, real nice. And I was looking at it going, man, that's a cool box. And I walked by, and I'm looking around, and I came back, and I looked at that box again. It's kind of like maybe I think I know that person. And I was like, you got to be shitting me. That's my box. And so I started talking to the guy. I was like, man, what can you tell me about this? He goes, man, that's a cool box. We've got this really cool fiber optic Orion logo that goes on the back of it. And I was like, you son of a guns. Because Orion had a fiber optic scrolling sign that would be like a store sign like you'd hang in your window. Yeah. And I took that and loaded it into the back of the box so that when it was off, it was black plexi on the back wall. You couldn't see it. But then you turn that thing on, and it was fiber optic scrolling. It was so cool. Oh, wow. And so I was like, really? Let me see that. And so he brings it out, and I was like, man, that's my box, and that's my sign. It was stolen out of my car. I said, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, and I prefer the hard way. You can let me take it, or I'll get Detective Ely down here. He was the detective that was on the case at that time. Because this was all just barely kind of over. And he's like, oh, no, here you go. He couldn't get me out of there fast enough. So I'd gotten my box back and the fiber optic sign, which I still have the fiber optic sign. I don't have the box anymore. So you asked about those gold amps. So then we had 2 stores. We had Car Toys, and then we had a store called Discount Sound. Somebody came in to Discount Sound with these black Orion amps and wanted them installed. No big deal. Tim, one of the installers, started installing. Well, he slipped. And when he slipped, his drill drug across the edge and revealed the gold underneath. And so he knew, you know what I mean, that, hey, so he started looking, and he could tell that if somebody had filled in where my name was and tried to repaint it and everything. So he knew. So he calls me. I go over there, and I'm talking to the customer. I said, man, here's the deal. That stuff was mine. It was stolen. I'm sure you paid for it. Oh, yeah, I paid for it. I said, here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to replace the amplifier for you. So I said, I'll give you this kicker impulse amp, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so that's how I got the amp back. So I got one of the little amps back. It wasn't a month later, and somebody comes in with a brand new Gold Series amp. Well, this second amp somebody had bought it and blew it up, or it was broken or whatever. They sent it to Orion, and they just paid the upcharge for it to be reconditioned. So when it came back, it had no name on it. And so that came into our store. Same thing. I said, man, that's my amp. It was stolen. I don't know what to tell you. I said, I'm willing to replace the amp to get mine back. So I did. So I've got the one amp that's all grummed up back, and I got a brand new, the other one back, and I still have them both. I'm a pack rat, man. I don't get rid of nothing.
I would just see you posting stuff.
Right.
I would just keep that bit going, and anywhere you go, I'd be like, you know what?
That's mine.
That's my amp.
That's my amp.
It was stolen.
Any used product.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? Harry Kammer was telling me that he stumbled across one of the 3545s that had been chrome plated was in his Acura. Like 15 years later on eBay, stumbled across it, and he ended up buying it. I guess the chrome's flaking off and all that, but it's like, how do you not? How do you not?
Well, and I remember both times I really didn't have the money to just pop out and buy somebody off the street an amp, but I wanted my amps back. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you did say it was kicker impulse, so.
Right, yeah. So it wasn't a big deal. But so during the process of all that, as I was putting the car back together, I had gotten a heater box and I bolted it back on, but I never put AC back on the car. And so one of the guys was like, hey man, you ought to put a woofer in there. Turn that into a woofer box. I'm like, man, that's genius. So I did. So the top where like the blower motor goes, I just made a cap that went on it. The wires that would have normally powered it were the actual wires I used for the woofer, but it was hid. Nobody knew it. So I had an upfront 12-inch sub, I don't know, years, 2 or 3 or 4 years that I didn't show pictures of it. Nobody knew. I always had woofers in the back that were never even hooked up. I always had, like one time I had 5 of the Kicker XS 100 amplifiers, the big cheater amps, but I only used 2 of them. I had one of them on the mids and tweeters passives, and the other one was on the sub. So it was always, my car really, there's always been a kind of an illusion. You know what I mean? There's what's there ain't there. What ain't there is there.
Keep them guessing.
And and so when I rebuilt that, when I redid the car in orange, that's when I did all that lead shot and all that treatment. That's when I built that sub box. And that sub box, man, guys, I don't know what it weighs, but it wouldn't surprise me if it ain't 100 pounds, maybe even more. Because what I did is I started out with a piece of 1/2-inch aluminum that was the shape of the heater air box. Then I drilled the holes for it to mount, so it mounts in the factory bolt holes. I cut the hole out for the woofer. Then I went to Walmart, got a big beach ball, and put there, and I wrapped it in fleece and resined it up good. And then I turned it where the aluminum was, flat like a tabletop, and I mixed up some Bondo, fiberglass, polyester resin, some chopped mill fiber, lead shot, and sand. I made literally a concrete. And I filled the bottom, it's rounded, but I filled that so it was level. So it's about 4 inches thick. Then I turned it on its side, and the next day I did it again. And I kept turning it. So literally, if I was to take that out of the car and take the woofer out and you look inside of it, it looks like a square box inside. And it's too heavy. I can't install it or in or out by myself. I've always had to have help anytime I put it in or out. But again, it was all about building everything as solid as possible. Everything, whether you like it. One thing about that car is whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whether you would do things one way or another way, I think it's pretty hard for anybody to look at it and go, well, at least what he did is done right. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, overkill, kick panels, square steel tubing welded to the car, 1/2-inch thick, baffle for the speakers to mount, just ridiculously strong. I was like, man, if I can build it stronger, that's how I wanted to do it. So that's where that front woofer idea came from. And then whenever I did it in, like I said, when I did the car in orange that first time, that's when I was like, I kind of opened the world and said, all right, there's a woofer there. And it kind of stun people. And then, it wasn't long after that, lots of people are trying to find a way of getting a woofer up front because it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It truly does. And you sit in the car at the show, and it's a long ways from prime time. We just got that thing playing, and got the crossover set and a little bit of gain structure. Not really any fine tuning, but it's solid and it's strong.
Yeah, it's cool because the way most systems, I mean, we had this conversation at Expo, but the way most systems are designed these days, they're all designed around three-ways, and we're sitting very close on the driver's side to a mid-range and a tweeter and very far from the passenger side. And getting back into a car where you sit a little further back and you have the path lengths are almost equal, and just those hardcore fundamentals those were the key to every car for 15 years, right? And then the game kind of switched to this different style, and this different setup became popular. And you sit in your car, and even without like EQing, you get this sense that you don't get in a modern style system. And you get that huge, I mean, with speakers in the kick panel, and the image is so tall, right? The stage height is so tall compared to a modern style system, and you just don't get that. It's strange
and wide,
strange and cool.
Yeah, and just the width. I listen to, I've kind of been away from competition for a while. I got pretty chasing it like we did. When Mark and I were at JBL and Kicker before that, competing was really part of our job. I mean, there's not many guys that had a factory paid car audio job where your job is to compete. And that was really, like I said, at Kicker and at Harman, that was our big part of our jobs, what we did. Man, I can tell you, me and Mark have put several 100,000 miles behind the wheels of a truck and trailer. We've hauled our vehicles all over the country, up to Canada, literally almost every state in the U.S., either to a show or a demo at a distributor or some kind of a training event or something. So, whenever I kind of hung the keys up, I mean, I was kind of burnt.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And, in here lately, though, I've kind of turned the corner, and I'm kind of getting excited about some of it again. So, I've kind of been away from it and really haven't kept up or listened to a lot of the more relevant cars of today. Mm-hmm. But when I do, though a lot of them sound great, and they're pinpoint, this, that, at the end of the day, they're not concert on wheels. And they're not what I'm used to with a two-seat type kind of deal. And I've always been lucky and fortunate, and the audio gods have always been with me, where I've had a two-seat car that's always imaged really good from both sides. Might not be perfect from the driver's side, might not be perfect from the passenger side, but you can jump in either seat and absolutely go, I would take this over, a large portion of whatever else is out there. And so, that's what I'm used to. That's what I like. And I probably shouldn't say this, but every system I've ever had, there's always been limitations. You know what I mean? Whether it was this product or that product or something. I've never really been in a position where it's like, man, I can put whatever the best thing in the world I think is, whether I'm right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I can put the best of whatever I want in the car.
Yeah, you were fortunate to have good backing from manufacturers the whole time,
absolutely.
But you also have to stay loyal to those manufacturers, and a lot of times that means sticking with one brand that may make one product really well, but maybe one thing is the limiting factor in the system.
Yep,
I agree with that.
So, hard work, perseverance, a super strong foundation. A super strong foundation. If I was going to offer a piece of advice, and I do it all the time, is you just can't start with a strong enough foundation. You can make far inferior products sound really good if it's installed correctly. And when people think installed correctly, they're thinking, okay, 6 screws, 8 screws, wires properly terminate or whatever. That's not the install.
Right.
That ain't the install. That's you installed it. The installation is the foundation and everything else. I mean, put your, my house, if it was sitting on a sandstone foundation, it would have crumbled by now, but it's on a good, strong post-tension foundation. Nothing's going anywhere, and that's why the house still stands.
I make this analogy to clients when I talk to them on the phone all the time, is that they have to realize what OEM manufacturers do with complete crap audio equipment and how good it sounds today based on proper tuning, right? Because that's so big today. It's just proper tuning with DSP, and a lot of shops out there just literally have no clue on tuning a car. And you got to just look at what the manufacturers do with the cheapest product in the world and how good they can make that product sound, right?
Yeah. So I had a similar conversation today with one of my dealers down in Louisiana, talking about some of the systems that comes in some of the Polaris side-by-sides and stuff. But it goes with exactly what you were just saying. So when I was working for Harman, there was a period there that I worked fairly close with the guys up in Elkhart, which were the team that designed a lot of the OEM systems that Harman built for the different vehicles. There would be one brand, Mark Levinson for one manufacturer, JBL for another manufacturer, Crown for another manufacturer. The list goes on. And so those guys would get a vehicle. Sometimes it would be a current vehicle. Sometimes it would be an early production vehicle, or even a prototype that wasn't even visible yet. I had a car come to them that they worked on it. They put the audio system in it. It had foam nuggets taped to it and wrapped. When it got to my place, I didn't even know what it was and wasn't allowed to look. So those guys will get a vehicle, and the first thing is design a system for it. Then the second thing is, okay, that system has got to come to us at a landed cost of $350, literally, or maybe $1,000, whatever. So can you imagine, how can you put any kind of system in a car, tweeters, mids, a radio, processing, maybe a woofer, for that amount of money? So the fact that they can do what they do, I know a lot of guys go, oh, that company built junk, or that JBL system in that Toyota's junk, or whatever. In actuality, it's pretty kick-ass if you knew that there was almost no money allotted or allowed for that system.
Yeah.
And so, the team up there would put systems in the cars, and then they'd come down here. We'd do some initial fine-tuning. I would make some beauty panels, make grills to, make it where it could be presented back to them, to see if we would, get the job or whatever, get the contract. But yeah, you're right. The OEM guys do, and I used to be the same way. Them guys suck. I can't believe they can't make something sound better. No, man, you're pretty awesome, because
they do some great stuff with what they're given.
Yeah,
and it's getting worse and worse because it's exposing more and more of the shops out there that don't know how to tune a car. Because if you can't closely even match what's there, right, then you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. And the problem is a lot of people tuning the car, again, don't know, can't sit in a car and understand phase. Like you can adjust something on an RTA all day long and hit your target curve. But at the end of the day, if you have phase issues, if you have voids and nulls somewhere, and you just keep adjusting different frequencies to hit your target curve, yeah, you have your target curve, but it could be completely wrong. Right? It doesn't mean you're done because you hit your curve. Right. No, you're right.
I feel bad. I have customers who bring cars to us to fix, and literally my wife has a car that has a factory Infinity system in it, and it would smoke half of these systems that these guys are dropping, $3,000 to $8,000 on, and like her factory system outperforms them in volume, tonality, subwoofer output, like all of these things, and it's a factory system. It's crazy.
You're right, and you just said something. So several years ago, I was going to put a system in my BMW. It's a 535 2013. So this was about 14 or 15 when I decided I was going to put a system in it. And so it was right after Marcus and Andy and I launched AudioFrog. And so I'm going to put all AudioFrog speakers in it, right? I mean, that's what I should do. But I didn't really know what I was going to do for amplifiers. And so I was talking to Chris Bennett with Audio Control Time. He's like, man, let me send you amps. I'm like, all right, no problem. And because Audio Control was a very safe brand in my eyes. They didn't make speakers. They just do amps. Everybody seems to play and get along well with Audio Control. You know what I mean? It just was a good, safe option. So I started putting a system in the car, and then he was like, man, would you bring it to Knowledge Fest in Dallas? I'm like, oh, man, I don't really have time to do a nice system. I'm not going to bring it down there and put it in the front. You know what I mean? I just was wanting to do a kind of a stock replacement system, make it sound better with our stuff. I was like, man, I don't have time to do this trick install to put in front of all my peers, you know what I mean? But anyways, I buckled down. I did a cool trunk install in it, and they just launched their DM810 processor, so I put a processor in it. And for the first time ever in my life, I set it up for one seat, driver's seat. And it sounded great. And it demoed, and everybody loved it and everything. No big deal. I get home, me and the wife and kid, we go out to eat. You know, we drive my car when we go out. And one day, my wife goes, I thought you just put a system in your car. I go, what do you mean? She goes, man, this sounds like crap. I'm like, what do you mean? And then it dawned on me what she meant, because it did. It sounded terrible for her. And then naturally, my kids, she's got to chime in and start chirping at me. Yeah, it sounds terrible from back here too. You know, blah 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 blah. I'm like, well, it sounds fantastic over here. So, little while later, we came out with our little up mixer, and so I put the little up mixer in there, and I added a center channel, and so now I've got great sound from everywhere, because now it's back to the similar Logic 7 system that came in the car that sounded good from every seat, right? And so I got that all in there and dialed in, and we went to dinner one night, and my wife's like, you fixed it. Sounds great. And so that was the biggest thing that gets me. You know, some of these customers come in, and they got this awesome car, and it's got, quite honestly, an awesome system. They want it better. Maybe they really want it louder. Maybe they want more bass. I think there's probably a lot lost in translation there. And then they end up getting a system that's redesigned for one seat. So, you know what I mean? You really kind of went backwards for the guy, I think. Now, if that's what the guy absolutely wants, and that's, give him what he wants. I mean, you know what I mean? That's what we're here. You want something, we give it to you. But you know what I mean? I think you got to find out what the customer wants and what the real needs are and everything. Because, you know, like I said, my wife is like, you're supposed to be some great car audio dude, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm getting the 9th degree, as you can imagine.
That's wild. Your wife's got some attention to detail. I'd be shocked if my wife knew what color car I drove.
Oh my gosh. So let's see, we got history up to, well, you just mentioned AudioFrog, so
Harman and AudioFrog, yeah.
How did the Harman to AudioFrog leap? How did that leapfrog happen?
Ooh, well, good segue.
Thank you.
So when I went to work, when Mark Eldridge and I went to work at Harman, we had our first year there. It was basically a marketing contract. I mean, Mark and I had a shop here. Mark was living in Stillwater. I lived in Tulsa, or Bixby, right outside of Tulsa, the entire time I worked at Kicker. So I drove back and forth. I commuted for several years.
How long's that drive?
It's if you leave at 5:45 in the morning, it's about 45 minutes. But if you leave at 5:50, it turns into an hour and 15 minutes. Ugh. It's the craziest thing. So about 45 minutes to an hour. But man, that hour commute there and that hour commute home was probably the best 2 hours of my day ever. You know what I mean? Because, you know, it's Gary time. You know, I could call and order supplies or order parts that we needed, or, you know, or take parts back and forth. You know, we're running errands for the company back and forth to Tulsa and stuff. So it really worked out fine. And I don't mind driving. So the first year, we just literally the first 6 or 8 months, we worked on our cars, converting them over and everything. So that's what we did, and then we competed, and that's when Harman JBL was kind of rebranding the brand. They launched all the Crown, the big Crown SPL amps, all the Crown series sound quality amps, all great product. The GTI woofers. I mean, they, a lot of great product. There's more engineering in 2 rooms in Northridge than most other companies have combined. You know what I mean? We and then after that first year, they hired me on full time, and so part of my job is I continued to compete a little bit, but then I was working between the U.S. and Asia, kind of a liaison between the with sales and stuff like that. Andy and I reported to Andy, but we both reported to Mike Giffen, VP of 12 Volt. So my job was to support the Asia distributors and our sales team over there. Did a lot of trainings. There's probably not very many countries over there or country that I haven't been to and done a training or visited or something. And it was a pretty rigorous training job, I guess you say.
What was the coolest place you got to visit?
Man, there's several.
That sticks out,
several
like the
places.
people or...
probably the coolest thing that sticks out to my mind, because I even thought about it today, was in Kuala Lumpur, seeing the big, towers, visiting, I think one of the James Bond's movies where, he walked across the bridge, the Sky Bridge or whatever. I can't even think of the name of the towers now. But that was really cool. The Mongolian beef in Mongolia is the best.
No shit.
The best. But honestly, probably the best meal. So I think Andy and I probably think a lot. We relate what we ate to what country it was a lot of times. But one of the best meals is Thailand. They actually have a pretty large Italian community. So if you can imagine going to your mother being Italian, your father being Thai, and both sets of grandparents get in the kitchen and start cooking a home cooked meal.
I'm sure that's amazing food.
I can't even describe it. I mean, I think my mouth is watering right now thinking about it.
Mine too.
So that was always great. And Indonesia is awesome. And probably there's lots of reasons to love Indonesia, but probably one of the biggest ones is just the friends, the distributors there. Mm-hmm. After a while, you become friends with some of these guys, and then you become really good friends. We had distributors where, it's custom that, hey, the first night that we're here, Gary's here, it's a home dinner at their home. Just different things, cool. Bali was cool. That's a tough question.
What was the most obscure food that you tried that you weren't you're like, I shouldn't do this, but you
I got a story.
Pressured into
I got a story. So one of the early trips, maybe my second year into working at Harman, we are in, I'm pretty sure it's South Korea. And, this was, now keep in mind, this is about 2003 or 4.
Okay.
Maybe 5, somewhere through there. So it's been 18, 20 years ago. And what was one of the big things, TV shows that was popular on TV at that time?
Fear Factor?
Fear Factor, absolutely. So we're at dinner, and Grace is like, we're talking. And now keep in mind, I'm traveling enough that I can kind of understand the conversation, but not really. So I'm picking up on little things that everybody's saying.
Just tell me you didn't end up drinking like Donkey Cum or something.
No,
God.
No.
There was an episode where they had that, and it was revolting.
So, and I'm one of these guys who I'll eat anything. I mean, I don't keep this girly physique by being stingy on what I eat.
Meals.
Yeah. So we're at dinner and they're ordering food, and Grace, we're talking, and Grace is like, and I hear Fear Factor come out of their mouths 2 or 3 times.
Uh-oh.
And so Grace looks over and goes,
news.
Gary, you like Fear Factor? I'm like, yeah, I thought we're talking about the TV show because that's popular. And everybody's like, oh, yeah. Out came the crazy.
Uh-oh.
And so the one thing, and I mean, like I said, I'll eat almost anything. So I need to back up. Let me back up.
Everyone's just wondering what you have.
I'm like envisioning there's
so
like
I got
a reel going in the back of my brain.
So I got to tell you this. I got to tell you this story because it'll tell you where my mindset was on the rest.
Okay.
So one of my first big trips over by myself, Andy, nobody from the U.S. markets went, just by myself. And it was about a 2.5 week trip. And I'm meeting with Mike Giffen, and he's like, all right, he's kind of giving me the 411 on everything. He goes, now you're a guest of honor. They want to treat you right, take care of you. You're going to be the head of the table. So, just accept it and go with it because they want to treat you right. So we're at dinner, and they order, different things, and this big old fish comes out. I mean, it's a big dude, like 2 foot long, and it's the whole fish. Like they cooked the whole fish. And so one of the guys is like, oh, Gary, you get the head. I'm like, no, I don't want the head. No, you can have it. No, Gary, you get the head. Guest of honor. So they break off this head to this fish and hand it to me. Well, I knew that something like this was coming. So I've had, several Johnny Walkers by this time, so I'm prepared for the head. So it gets over there to me, and I just take my and I can use chopsticks pretty good. So I'm chopping off that fish, and I'm just eating it. And everybody's like, yeah, you eat it. I mean, I'm eating it like pork rinds. Well, come to find, and I ate almost that whole fish head.
Oh.
I really didn't want to, but I did. Come to find out, the delicacy of the fish is the cheek muscle.
Oh, okay.
That's like the best part of the fish. And so that was the deal. Had I just ate the cheek muscle meat and pushed the rest away, I'd been fine. But no, I'm eating the whole thing. So that's my mindset, right? Mm-hmm. So we're further down the road, the next town, the next city, the next visit, and so they bringing out all kinds of stuff, and I'm eating it. I'm like, well, I guess this ain't too bad. Until I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's called the bala or something, and what it is. It's like a chicken or a duck egg. But there's that, if you can imagine that chicken or duck, these were duck, I think. Like there's a day window or 2-day window where it turns from soft cartilage or whatever to starting to be a bone, starting to be hard. And the feathers pop up that day too, I guess. And so they bring this thing out, and it's like 1 day too old. And all I can imagine is Wile E. Coyote eating the Roadrunner. I'm like, man, whatever I do, don't start coughing up feathers. So yeah, that was tough. That was hard to do, and it did not taste good. It was
too much for me.
Oh,
I would have bowed out.
Yeah,
when that fish came out, I would have been like, I gotta go. I got a thing.
Oh, but yeah, I could tell you some crazy stories about the food, but man, the food is awesome. It's just different than what we've been growing up, how we grew up. But yeah, so yeah, lots of great places, lots of great people. So anyways, as we become better friends with the different distributors and such, it would become a common joke that, Gary, Andy, you should have your own speaker. You need your own speaker. We're like, yeah, that'd be fun, whatever, and time goes by, and there's never no play on it or anything. And then Harman started going through some big changes. There was a private buyout that took place, and just a total change of upper brass, and it just changed a lot for everything. I got a new boss that was like a ghost boss. I never seen or heard or talked to the guy. Months would go by without any communication. So anyways, during about that time, myself and Andy and Marcus started, so Marcus handled, VP of Asia Pacific market. So by this time, we're, Andy and I obviously are good friends and great friends with Marcus. And so one thing leads to another. And about the time I left, shortly after that, Andy left. Shortly after that, Marcus left. We went into developing the speakers and launched the GB series speakers, high-end speaker. We probably should have come out with the entry level a little sooner, or because but it's one of them deals where do you really want to come out and the Yugo be your flagship vehicle, or do you want to have something higher end? Mm-hmm. So that's where all that.
And just to clarify to the audience that doesn't know, GB stands for what?
My initials. So yeah, kind of funny. And they're great speakers. I mean, I don't know if either of you guys have ever used them, played with them, installed them, but great speakers. We sat down, Andy and I sat down and spent hours and hours and hours thinking about different things. And, Andy coming from an installer background and myself, installer, a lot of the stuff was installer driven. And I told Andy, I said, man, no matter what, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the speakers accommodate an SAE hole saw. Because all these years, we take a hole saw, you drill it out, and either it's too large for the speaker and it's sitting in there wiggling, or it's not big enough and you got to sit there and carve it out and you end up having a jaggedy edge or something. So that's what we did. And that's probably was one of our biggest things that installers loved, was how well they installed, how well they fit, how well all the installation parts and everything were thought out and everything.
Now, when developing a speaker like that, how many prototypes do you physically look at until you settle on the final run?
So there's probably several ways you can look at that. If you're taking product off the shelf, open tool product, you may have to maybe not go through many, because you can pull off tried and true parts and components that other brands have used. Or you can develop everything from scratch yourself and do everything the right way, the best way from the get-go, and you don't have quite as huge of an obstacle maybe to deal with. Keep in mind, those speakers, every part of every speaker was tooled down to the mounting screws that holds the speakers together. And a couple reasons for that was, and Andy was big proponent, is I don't want anybody saying or thinking that we robbed their parts, or I don't want somebody saying, well, that looks like a Dyne Audio, or that looks like a Scan speaker, or that looks like a this or that or whatever. As well as the fact that if we own the tooling and it's all ours, it's harder for somebody else to take that stuff off the shelf and make something that looks like it. Going on 10 years now, right at 10 years, 9 or 10 years. There's no knockoffs. You know what I mean? There's really nothing that even really looks similar.
Yeah, it would be so expensive to knock
It's way
off.
too expensive for somebody to sit down and, tool all of that stuff. They're just not going to do it. But had we gone to a manufacturer and let them design and tool and everything, and now that becomes, house parts, after a certain amount of time, they potentially sell the off-shelf tooling parts to whoever. Now somebody else has got something that looks like it.
And another question too, based on designing a speaker from scratch. Obviously, it's got to sound good, but it's also got to look good. So when developing the speaker, do you start with performance and then try and make it look good? Or do you kind of do both at the same time as you're messing with the parameters of the speaker?
Yeah. So I think probably every company that sits down and is on a mission to develop a speaker, wants performance. I mean, and keep in mind, sometimes a higher performing component also looks good. You know what I mean? It in its development, it's just a better looking part. A higher quality material. So some of that goes hand in hand. Some of it's twofold. Like I said, with the GB series, it was definitely about a high performance speaker, and then obviously having something that looked awesome too.
Yeah, they are great speakers. We don't use them a lot, but we are a dealer, and we do use them. And Man, those GB60s, we actually just took a customer's trading in a car, and we just took them out. And they'll probably get transplanted to his new car. But I was trying to find another 6 to go back in its location. And one of the things that I forgot how much I loved about that speaker is how small of mounting hole it is for a 6-inch driver. And like you can fit it in places where other people have a massive 6, and it punches like a bigger driver, but fits in a smaller hole. It fits in a lot more locations.
It's funny you say that because, several weeks ago, whenever I was replacing the product in my car, my mind was, okay, we're putting these Thesis amps in, the Thesis speakers. I don't want to accidentally fire this thing up and smoke a mid or smoke a tweeter. So I thought, you know what? The last thing I'm going to do is replace the speakers. I'm going to get everything playing and everything. So everything was flawless. I went to Jimmy Bradfield. We worked together. He came up and was going to help me one day, a couple days when I was kind of down to the wire. And so I pulled the AudioFrog speakers out, and those Thesis speakers weren't even close to wanting to fit. So back to like I was talking about earlier, and you can, if you ever talk to Jimmy, you can ask him. So I unbolted the aluminum baffle that bolts to the steel that's welded into the car. I unbolted the bolts all around it. It was silicone in. So I got a big chisel and a 10-pound, hammer, and I'm just trying to break it loose. And even I told Jimmy, I was like, it's like Rocky pounding on a slab of beef. It is solid. It ain't metal ringing and tinging. And Jimmy goes, I guarantee you there's nobody that is taking a sledgehammer to their kick panels without their whole car just blowing up. But that's what I had to do to get that, that aluminum baffle out so I could build a new one for the new speakers. But yeah, something that I thought was going to take me, maybe an hour per kick panel ended up taking all day.
Never happens to me. Never.
Never. Yeah. But you're right. Very small footprint for a lot of output for a great speaker.
Yeah, and the big tweeter too. I think it's GB15, like one of my favorites. Like,
yep.
You don't find large dome tweeters that handle power, play low, don't have a bunch of resonance, have a decent sized chamber on the back. Like that's just not in the normal car audio realm, and it definitely is a step above.
The speakers, they have a lot of. There's a lot of. I'm just call it technology, stuff that's available to any company out there. But think about it. Every time you add $1 to a speaker at the true manufacturing level, you probably turned it into $30 or maybe more than that at the consumer level.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. A little copper ring, that costs 50 cents ends up costing the consumer $35. Well, can you get by without it? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, a lot of companies. It's amazing. I learned a lot through all of that, looking at other people's products and going, yeah, it costs $1.50 to build that speaker.
Here's another question. Was there any other names other than AudioFrog that you were thinking about as like the name of the company?
So that's a very interesting question. So
like, what was it almost if it wasn't AudioFrog?
No, believe it or not, it was basically AudioFrog literally almost from the get-go. That was Andy's deal. His wife, Lisa. And to be honest with you, even all these years and everything, I still don't really know exactly the story. Okay. But keep this in mind. This is one of the things that I do remember us talking about. I told Andy, I said, you know what? I don't care what it's called. I truly don't, because it's going to be an awesome product and people are going to buy the product. Now, there's a little bit of resin and, rib punching that comes with it. But all in all, here we are, 8, 9, 10 years later, and it's an accepted brand, just like any of the other brands. Mm-hmm. But one of the things, part of the conversation was, we also wanted to appeal, to other markets around the world, Asia market, and something that's popular overseas, characters and things, So we wanted something friendly. We wanted something that kind of did a trick, leaping over the competition, different things of that. Now, you could put whatever spin on it, but yeah, to be really honest with you, that's really a question for Andy, because, like I said, I really just it didn't matter to me. You know what I mean? It could have been called anything, and I really didn't care.
It does really stick out. Like if you say it to somebody and they've never heard it before, they're like, "Excuse me, what'd you say?" Yeah. And so it actually draws them in a little bit.
Not
it's very
only
intriguing.
That, yeah. And so I even noticed something at Master Tech last week when Brian would have the screen scrolling with the exhibitors' names and stuff, and whether it's because I'm kind of sort of intimate to the brand or whatever you want to call it, my eye is drawn to it. It pops out just usually quicker than most of any other brands. So it's effective. There's it ain't a brand, it ain't a name where people can move a letter around and turn it into a nasty slang or something. You know what I mean? I mean, it's I mean, to me, it's very well thought out because it looks very elegant. The speaker design is very elegant.
It from a design standpoint, it's a really good brand name, logo. Just looking at the speaker, it's super clean. I mean, you guys did a really good job on all that stuff. That speaks volumes because there's a lot of other companies with way more R&D and balls behind the company, and you guys developed a better product than a lot of other companies out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there came a day where you were no longer working at AudioFrog.
Yeah, so that was it was a pretty tough time. So like any company, we started out and we hit the ground running. You know what I mean? Did everything that a company needs to do. And and we have a high-end product. So I'm sure GM doesn't sell as many Corvettes as they do Sparks or whatever, you know what I mean? So, we started out, fairly well funded, did some things that were probably smart and wise, probably did some things that may not have been as smart and wise, but it got to the point where we just, the sales were beginning. You know what I mean? A new company, a beginning company, and so it's hard to pay 3 guys a bunch of money to one living in Singapore, one of the most expensive places in the world to live, and then another guy in LA, which is like the second most expensive place in the world to live. Luckily, I'm out here in Oklahoma, the armpit of America, so it's easy to live out here. But it was just a tough deal. And I was talking to Hector, that owns Momentum, and we're just talking about different things. And he's like, "Man, you ought to." And I had worked for Hector before. He's like, "Man, you ought to think about coming back to work for me." He goes, last time when you was working with us, we picked up Rockford, and it helped our company. It was a big deal. You were a big part of helping all that come to happen. And he goes, and now we got an opportunity to pick up Kenwood, and if we can pick up Kenwood, we'd have Rockford. You add up these big brands, and he's like, "Man, we'd be the real deal." And so I contemplated on it, thought about it, prayed about it, all kinds of things, and then I just told Andy, I was like, "Man, I got an opportunity to go back to work for Hector, managing and selling in my territory, Oklahoma, Arkansas, North Texas." And I said, I can pay my bills, and AudioFrog doesn't have to worry about trying to pay my bills. And so it just made sense. So it was a good clean break as far as that's concerned. Marcus and Andy and I launched the company. Theoretically, on paper, it's still all 3 of ours. One of these days we'll figure out the details.
All good. And how many years has it been that you're in the rep game?
So when I first left Harman, I went to work for Hector for 4.5 years managing, like I said, Oklahoma, Arkansas, North Texas. At that time, actually, I did all of Oklahoma and half of Texas, basically Dallas North, which was huge. Still, ridiculously huge. I did that for about 4.5 years. During that time is when the AudioFrog stuff was in the works. Once it was ready to launch, then I left Momentum, and then that's when we did AudioFrog. That was about 4.5 years, and then now I've been back with Hector for 5.
Wow, time flies, huh?
It does. Everything I just mentioned, it seems like, I can remember it like it just happened.
Right.
And so tell us about the story of getting your car back on the road and putting it back together and the road to Master Tech this year.
Yeah, so, the car's been... So when we launched AudioFrog, I put all AudioFrog speakers in it, and we had it in Texas at Knowledge Fest that first year. So that goes back to about 7 or 8, I think.
And you've owned it the entire time.
Well,
right?
So at one time, so I've had the car all the way back. I did sell it / try to sell it once.
Okay.
Right after I quit competing, kind of retired it, and did that big magazine spread where we took the install apart and showed behind the scenes pictures of the front woofer and the kick panels and wiring and just some of the cool stuff. A friend of mine that I had known for several years from car shows and audio competitions, he contacted me and wanted to know if I wanted to sell it. And I was like, man, not for sale. He's like, oh, come on, man, everything's got a price. So I threw a number out, and he's like, all right, I'll buy it. And I'm like, well, I need to do a few things. I need to dumb it down before I sell it to somebody. Because right now, you know what I mean? It's my puzzle. I know how the pieces go together. And it's been sitting a while. It needs new batteries. And I just need to dumb it down a little bit so that you could take it and enjoy it and all that kind of stuff. So I started on doing that. And then probably just the best way to say it is that deal fell through and he wasn't able to buy it. And so then the car was already taken way apart because I was going to do, at that time I was going to do new door panels, do a lot of different stuff to make it his car. So it ain't Gary's car. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that deal fell apart. So the car just set in pieces. And when I say in pieces, I'm talking it's on jack stands. It's got no doors on it, no hood on it.
Oh, gosh.
No wheels on it. It's blown apart just because I'm stupid, and that's what you do when you're going to work on a car, right? You blow it apart and, leave no stone unturned. I put it back together, took it down to Knowledge Fest, had AudioFrog in it, demoed it, brought it home and parked it I got a 3-car garage, and I parked it on the far side of the garage, and it became a clothes hamper. There's no telling how many t-shirts were stacked up on that car. Years and years and years of audio shirts and jackets and everything. It just sat there. For the longest, I didn't even have a key to the front door. I would go in and out the garage, and I'd wake up at midnight and have to get me something to drink or go to the bathroom, and I'd go out and look in the garage. Hey, is that thing still out there? I'm just so used to passing by it. About SEMA, not last SEMA, but the one before, so like 2 SEMAs ago, like a year and a half ago, I was talking to Rob Wimpy at SEMA, and he's asking me about the car. Hey, what are you going to do with that? I was like, man, I got a couple other projects going on. I ain't got time to mess with that. Well, if you ever want to do anything, let me know, and we'll help you with whatever you want for it. So I just let it be. I saw Rob again, and he's asked me about it. And well, just let me know. And I said, man, you better quit teasing me and quit saying that, because I've seen what you have in your catalog, and it won't be basic amplifiers if I do something. Well, just give me a list. So I sat down and I was like, if I'm really going to do this, the only way I would do it is if I'm putting whatever the best that whatever company has to offer. You know what I mean? It would make no sense to take Audison as a brand and put their entry level products in my car. Because if I'm gonna tear into this, it's got to, in my mind, it's got to be worth it. So I put a little proposal together. I put a list of product together. I sent it to Rob, and he calls me up and he goes, "Hey, I got your list." And I started laughing. I said, "Yeah, I bet you did." And he goes, "Well, let me get a hold of Massimo and the guys from Italy. I might need a little help with this." I'm like, "All right." And you know what? A few weeks later, I pull up at my house. I see a bunch of stuff on the porch, and I walk up, and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!"
That's awesome.
All that stuff stacked up, and I'm like, "Now the hard part starts, right?"
And now you got to build it.
Yeah. So amazing. So that all takes place, like about this time last year, back in the spring. And I really thought about, and just coming home from Master Tech, seeing the trunk that, was the big fab project that everybody did. I'm like, man, that's what I want to do to the car. I want to take everything out and I want to kind of return it back to a little bit more of a daily driver type kind of a car. And then I started messing with the car and I'm like, oh, I can't do it. What I've got in there is just, to me, was just too cool. The dash looks like it was just built. The doors look like they were just built. The trunk looks like it was just built. There's no cracks or flaking paint or nothing.
Plus, there's a lot of nostalgia in there. You're just
like,
I don't want to touch it. It's
right.
too
So
nice.
So I started talking to McNulty, and he's like, dude, just swap the product. It makes your install easy, and it keeps the car being the car. And I was talking to Brian, and Brian's like, hey, get that thing running and bring it out here and we'll put it on display. This was before swapping the product was really a part of the picture. So then, I just started putting the puzzle together. I'm like, all right, you know what? Get it running, change out the audio, take it out to Brian's show. Most of the dudes that are there don't even know what a Buick Regal is. You know what I mean? Let alone, a lot of them have never seen that car. And that was the big thing that I got from everybody. It's like, man, I've heard about it, but never seen it. So it was really cool, you know what I mean? Exposing everybody to the car. Because it ain't Speakerworks Grand National by no means, but it does still kind of carry its own weight, you know what I mean, in the industry. There's probably a dozen cars like that. You got Fukuda's Blazer, you got Wayne's Terminator, you got, there's a Gary, some of the the Alpine vehicles, some of the Rockford vehicles, just some of the things out there. There's that handful of cars that they are what they are. And so McNulty's like, man, just leave it all like it was, swap the product, and that'll be cool. So really, I don't have much time in swapping the product because everything was kind of just replacing something that was already there. Just a little bit of relocating some wiring. But the car itself, getting it to run, was an absolute nightmare. Because you can imagine sitting all those years, the gas tank, when I drained it, so I dropped the gas tank, and I didn't know how much gas is in it. It must have had about a full tank. Because I pumped out 3 5-gallon buckets, 15 gallons.
Oh, gosh.
And that gas was orange, from the rust and buildup in the tank. Mm-hmm. So, new gas tank. New fuel pump, new fuel lines, new injectors. The injectors turned out to be the biggest deal because when I had that engine built, a motor builder here, Jerry Robertson, built it, and he deburred it and sanded it and made it slick as glass, and then I had it painted. It's painted purple to match the car too. And then there used to be a place over in Arkansas called Street and Performance, and back then they were big on all the tune port stuff. The LS1 swaps were just starting to come on, and I almost did an LS swap, but I was always in love with the tune port from the IROCs and the Camaros, and that's what I wanted to put in the car. You know what I mean? To me, that fit the car better. So I bought their Brodix heads, all their internals, all that chrome tune port and everything that's sitting on it, and had all that done. Well, I couldn't get no fuel to pass the injectors. All 8 injectors were clogged up. So, man, I bought probably 5 sets of injectors trying to find the right ones. And I finally found a set that fit right. and it seemed like everything was right, except one of them leaked fuel really bad. Why just one, I don't know. So I'm friends with James Goad, which is Reaper SS on the 405 Outlaw, the Discovery Channel race show. I used to do a bunch of audio and stuff for him and his brother. So I called James. I'm like, man, I need your help. Do you have any injectors that I can get for the car? He's like, well, what do you need? I'm like, man, I really don't know. And he's like, well, you can't just put anything in there. If you got something that's too much volume, you'll run too rich. Not enough volume, it'll run too lean, and you'll wash out you'll have problems. He goes, why don't you just get your original ones rebuilt? It never entered my mind. He goes, here, hang on a second. Man, right there, he's on the phone. This is, now keep in mind, this conversation is at 5:15 in the morning. Because he gets up early, I get up early, and so he Googles and he finds a place up here in Tulsa that rebuilds injectors, and it's 2 miles from my house. Literally 2 miles from my house. So I take those injectors over there. I meet the guy. He's a cool guy. He says, yeah, it was going to take me about a week to get them. I'm like, oh. I said, man, is there any way? I explained to him what I'm doing, and I dropped them off on Friday evening. Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, he calls me. He goes, hey, man, I got your injectors done. So I go over and pick them up, $15 a piece. And he's got a dyno injector and everything. And he flowed them. They were 48.5-pound injectors. Well, as you know, that's pretty serious. The injectors that I had that I found for it that I was going to try to use were 26-pound injectors.
Oh, gosh.
So the best thing that ever happened was that thing sprayed gas all over the place. It freaked me out. Because I had the top end of that engine apart 3 times. I mean, and I'm not really a motor guy. That was a big... I'm in desperation, you know what I'm saying, for me to pull that apart and to work on that.
Yeah, it's tough when you're not confident on something like that.
Right. And not really knowing, you know what I mean? So anyway, got those new injectors in there, primed it, played with the step by step, with the fuel and everything, and then, all right, here it goes. And I hit the key and it fired up, purred like a kitten, and I was like, you gotta be joking. I couldn't believe it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, getting the car running was a huge deal. So I put it in drive, I made sure it moved forward, I put it in reverse, made sure it goes back, and so all that's done. Well, then I'm talking on the phone. It's me, Rob Wimpy, Dwayne from Electromedia, and Schmidt. And so we're talking about some different logistics, and Brian's like, no, somebody said something about carpet. So I have a big carpet mat that from Matworks back in the day that I put the carpet on. And Brian's like, well, yeah, you ought to bring your carpet, because if that thing leaks. I said, leak? I said, this thing, honestly, it's never leaked a drop of oil the entire time I've had it. I mean, Jerry was the best. He died not maybe a year ago, but he was the best round track race car motor builder. He built the 383 motor for me. I mean, his process is awesome. And like I said, not a drop, nothing. I told Brian, I said, are you crazy? This thing don't leak oil. But, after having it at the expo, I've uncovered that, I do have a brake issue. The brakes are very spongy. I probably need to work on that. And the power steering pump squeals like a blower or something. So it's got a couple issues yet that I've uncovered since. But yeah, so my advice to anybody is don't every month go out there and start something.
Yep.
Because man, it was a small fortune getting that thing working and running, as well as in the heartache and the headache and the mental freak out doesn't even compare. Because here I am thinking I've got all the time in the world, really, because this should be simple stuff, right? And then next thing you know, you got your engine half apart, the gas tank's down.
Yeah, but there's nothing like a deadline like that. Like committing to something like that. Like, does that not remind you of the old school days of trying to get ready for it, whether it's a CS or a SEMA or
it reminded me why I quit doing it.
Right. Something about having that such a hard deadline, and it always makes you say, you know what, that's going to work. We're going to run it. We're going to run it that way, and then getting it drivable. And I mean, that's
well,
gotta
especially
feel
when
great.
you've taken such a hiatus and you're a little bit older. You're like, I wonder if I still got it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It just hurts more in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I'm underneath the car replacing the batteries. And, you know, and I was like, I remember one night, you know, it's 2 a.m. And I was like, oh, this didn't hurt getting under here. Why does it hurt getting out? But yeah. Yeah, we're not.
How stoked are you that it's back together, though? I mean,
Man,
that's
I'm
just so
pretty.
cool.
I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty excited. I can honestly say that, in my opinion, like I said, everybody's got their opinion, but in my opinion, I've got the best amplifiers made in the car. If the speakers aren't the best, they are very close to it. You know, I mean, the speaker wire is silver speaker wire. You know what I mean? I mean, just ridiculousness that I never was able to really have or do before. And I'm telling you, and you listen to it, for that to be like a foundation starting point,
Right.
it is going to be really awesome. So that's what I'm really stoked about, because I can't tell you how many times I would turn the system on the first time and be like, yeah, this is going to be a long road to hoe.
So we have a question for you. What was the first song you played when you fired it back up?
Oh, that's a good question.
This is no lie. So after, and I used to piss people off, like after a show, when I was done with the show, Queen, Another One Bites the Dust, I'd play it as loud as I could as I'm driving out of the convention hall or driving away from the lanes or whatever.
That's awesome.
And that
I
was
thought
the
you were going
first...
to go a safety dance.
No. So that was the first thing I played. And so here's not only that. So I'm going to add to that. Over all the years, you know, I'm a slow adopter to technology. I truly am. Being in the business, I should be on top of it. But people used to ask me, man, what's the difference in high res and CD? And I'm like, there ain't much difference. You know, what kind of difference can there be, right? Well, let me tell you. After playing high res files in the car compared to CD, and keep in mind, I got that Denon Z1 in there. In my opinion, probably one. If it ain't the best CD out there, there's everything else is an equal. You know what I mean? It's a great CD player. And I was joking. I was like, you know, cassette is your best friend telling you he just got a new girlfriend. You know what I mean? CD is, oh, he came over and told you they made out. You know what I mean? All right. And then high res is you stole his girlfriend from him and now you're dating her. You know what I mean? There's a huge difference. And when I was setting the system up, as I was installing the different things, you know, I'm setting levels and gain matching and just listening, you know, making sure I don't have any noise issues. I got a little Radio Shack speaker because I'm old school, and that's how I'm setting levels and stuff. And, you know, it don't take nothing to distort one of those Radio Shack speakers. And on my workbench, and I've got the Denon radio, I've got this little Beacon streamer from Audison, I've got an amp, I've got everything benching it, hooking it up, and I can go full throttle volume up to 60 on the high-res player and it not distort that little realistic Radio Shack speaker. I was really impressed with that.
It sounds so good. You almost want to put that little Radio Shack channel speaker as your center channel in your
You
system.
could. I'm telling you.
That one time. Sounds like that one time you're out getting points.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when I turned that thing on, and I mean, I immediately went straight to Queen, Another One Bites the Dust. I'm turning it up. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. Next thing you know, I'm at level 60. It's max volume. And I get out of the car. I'm walking around my shop. It's like I've got a concert going on in there. I mean, it's so loud. It's so clean. It's so crisp. I don't have any tweaky, you know, Iasca sound quality stuff on the high-res player yet. So, you know, even at Master Tech, I really wasn't able to. I know a lot of guys wanted to listen to the car and wanted to hear some finesse, and like I said, it really ain't ready for prime time yet, and I don't even have any of that for us to listen to. But yeah, man, it's awesome, and that's always been one of my favorite songs. As a kid, when I was in third grade, I had a next door neighbor. His name was Mike. He was a mechanic out at Fort Sill military base, but he had a shop in his backyard, and he was always building and rebuilding his Harley Davidson motorcycle. He was actually in the Hells Angels way back when, after getting out of the military. And so that guy, he had a boy that was my age, and we would work on our bikes. Every time his dad was working on the Harley, I was working on my Huffy. So was Mike, little Mike. And so I really learned how to use my hands and learn to make stuff and mechanic on stuff at that time. I don't know how many third graders are wrenching on stuff, but I was. I mean, we were rebuilding our bikes, doing all, like a lot of kids were. But he had a radio in his garage, and I can remember it like yesterday. Another One Bites the Dust, all those songs from, late 70s. If you ever want to get into a music quiz, I can probably hang with the most, because I can relate a song to a chick I was dating, or somewhere I was driving down the road or something. You know what I mean? I just relate to it. Awesome.
What song reminds you of the shittiest chick you've ever dated? Give me a song.
Man, there was this song from Great White, because I dated this chick that was pretty crazy during that time when they were popular. those are memories. Those are songs we're supposed to forget.
Yeah, that's funny. I feel like, Gary, you and I need to do an episode revolving around the gray area of like high-res media, because and that's the fun part about having like Andy on is, he takes the opposite stance against that media, which a lot of the stuff he says is completely 100% true. Just because it's labeled high res doesn't mean it's high res. Obviously,
True.
there's a big push with these record companies to resell media, right? So like, there is no such thing as Creedence Clearwater in high res, right? Anytime you're talking about these tracks, they've been remastered. So part of what you're hearing is perhaps how it's been remastered, and you're hearing an entirely different version of the track than you've heard before, and you're finding it way more interesting. Is that high res? No, it's the fact that it's been remastered and there's been artistic liberties taken when the track was remastered, right? Another thing might be because of, the DACs of the unit creating a lot more separation within the track, and you're like, wow, this is incredible. Is it high res? No, it's not. But I'd like to not use high res and just say kind of like the best digital version of the track available, or the best version of the track available, because that's pretty much what it is. It's not necessarily high res, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that have been remastered and they've stripped the noise out. It's a little bit more dynamic, but then again, you get into the argument where, Andy would say that anytime something's been remastered, the tape is cut and the dynamic range is lost. So it's technically not as dynamic as it was originally, right? So it's like an argument that can spiral out of control in both favors of people who believe in both different stances of the technology. But at the end of the day, I think it's just trying to give your client the best way to enjoy the music that's out there, right? And I think at the end of the day, that's what it is.
Yep, I can agree with that 100%.
But yeah, we got to do an episode on that one day.
Yeah. We'll also have to see if there's a list of actual high-res albums that are available.
Right.
And
yeah.
I will say that more modern music, so stuff that's recorded today, it's natively recorded, at least in like 2444, 2448, some 2496. But obviously going beyond 2496 is kind of irrelevant, in my opinion, just because of like the Nyquist theorem that states that an octave below the sample rate is kind of where you can perfectly reciprocate an analog waveform, and most speakers are not going to, play above technically 48,000 hertz.
And or the electronics,
Right.
you're
Right.
pushing it all through. Absolutely. There's a great argument all the way around that. And I think at the end of the day, you can't deny the science and the physics of it. However, what you did say, though, is very true, and that's what everybody's trying to accomplish is, like you said, they want to sell albums, they want to sell music, and reissuing it calling it high res, resampling, making it a little, different or whatever. It accomplishes that. Mm-hmm. And there's also nothing wrong with experiencing something new. It's no different than a haircut or a new hat.
And that's why I always love talking to Andy, and I think, having him on the podcast and being able to have those debates back and forth, like he takes one stance, other people take another stance, and there's truths to both stance, and it's trying to understand what is happening between everything to find the common ground, because we both agree with each other, but at the end of the day, it seems like we don't agree with each other, right? Because again, especially a lot of the stuff that I do, I generally always sell like the high-end Astel and Kern high-res player, and that is the main source of media that we're playing the best version of music on. And nobody will ever sit in one of those cars and not tell me that the separation of Pink Floyd Money is better on Bluetooth or any other source as it is on the Astel and Kern, because the Astel and Kern is creating way more separation. The width and depth is completely different on that player versus me streaming it from my phone at whatever the sample rate may be. It's not the same. But the difference technically isn't because it's high res. It's because of twofold, right? We're using much better DACs, and we're listening to a DSD version of the track that's been remastered. So technically, it's a different track than the one that I'm playing on iTunes or whatever.
Right.
That's your first problem.
Yeah. And I think you guys redoing all of the older nostalgic cars, I'm pretty sure you're going to see in the future that there's going to be a few other ones that might make an appearance because of this wave of nostalgia coming back.
Oh yeah, it's actually amazing, the guys out there that still have some of the cars.
Have you seen any of the pictures of Earl Zasimer's BMW getting rebuilt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
No, it's awesome.
He's taken it to a crazy level to restore that thing.
Yeah, so Mike, because I'm always, every now and then I get nostalgia. I want to show off all my old junk. So Mike contacted me and he goes, "Hey, would you happen to have this old Sony Mobile ES digital switcher?" I was like, "Dude, are you joking? Of course I got one. Probably got a couple." So I hooked him up with one so that he can control multiple changers.
Nice.
Probably, I'm not going to say I've got the only last couple in the country, but probably.
Probably.
I mean, he's scouring the earth trying to find one and didn't have any luck. So yeah, no, that'll be fun. That'll be a neat car. Neat when he gets it all back done.
Yeah, and then I thought Wayne Harris was supposed to have the Terminator at Master Tech this year. I thought that at one point was.
So about this time last year, he was getting pretty busy on same thing. Had to get it running and everything else. But it's just a huge undertaking. I think what he wanted to do was show up with that thing with all working gear like it was. There's he's got Rockford Z sliders and stuff in there from the late 70s, and I've got several brand new in the box. And I told him, I was like, "Hey,
gosh.
I said if you don't get yours working, I've got new ones." So and I helped him locate a couple alarm things and stuff, and then Mark's wanting to start on his Blazer, and I just found some at a shop. I found some that's going out of business. I found some new in the box, brand new VSE Quantum alarms.
Wow!
So I picked them up and shipped them down to Mark. Nice. So now he's going to try to be able to get his Quantum working.
Awesome.
That's
cool. So yeah, it's cool. There's probably, and I know for a fact, the Speaker Works Grand National. The last time that Mark and I traveled out there to finals. Now, keep in mind, it's been a while. The thing is taken apart. It's in a bubble and it's in 100 pieces. You know what I mean? But it's sitting there. It's crazy to walk in there and see that car sitting there. And it could be put back together just like that. It could go back together quick.
That would be
How
awesome.
Cool would that be, right?
Someday.
So, yeah.
It would be cool to see all the old iconic cars come back to life, or what could come back to life, and then can compete with modern technology and see, because obviously back then everything was engineered in a way where a DSP couldn't help you like it does today, right? So I think that would kind of even more show the best built system. It would just be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, you're right. I agree with everything you're saying. Here is where I think we're at, and this ain't a dig at nobody. It's just the reality of it. Let's just say, however long ago, 100 years ago, what we think of as red today, what if it really started out as blue? And every year it slowly changed its appearance until it started to appear as what we could see as red now. Does that make sense? But it happened over such a slow period of time, nobody recognized it or realized it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we call red looked like it was blue however long ago. I know that might be a crazy analogy, but where I'm going with that is you got to compare that to today's judging, because what the judges looked for and wanted out of a system 20 years ago is totally different than what they are wanting and looking now, because the cars changed and just your perception on what sounds good or whatever is now quite a bit different. I think that it would be very interesting if, like you said, a lot of those old school cars, if they're dialed in, set up right, if they were in the lanes and you're sitting there and you got a car with kick panel speakers and whatever, and you got this giant sound stage that's literally window pillar to window pillar, and it sounds like it's on top of the dash, and it sounds like it's just so big, it's just like a band coming through the windshield. And then you compare that to a modern car where there's speakers on the pillars, and though it sounds great, everything is in a 2-foot spot in the middle of the dash. You know what I mean? There is no giant left, no giant right. I mean, I've listened to some of the best sounding single seat cars lately, and they sound great. But I'm like, all right, there's nothing. There's no left channel. There's no right channel. It's almost all like a weird mono kind of a thing. I don't know how to describe it because I ain't been around what everybody's doing these days long enough. And I'm getting reacclimated to it. But I have a hard time believing that a car from 15 years ago, the best cars then, could not absolutely stand up with anything that's the best cars today.
I think the biggest difference is, I think the trade-off is that the newer school competition cars have a very focused soundstage. They're very detail oriented, but they don't have the dynamics and they don't have the big sound. And when I went to Mark Eldridge's place this year, and I got that experience that I think is great, is listening to a set of monitors, and then listening to a bigger set of monitors, and then listening to a big set of PA speakers play the same track over and over. It's almost like what you're describing, that trade-off of the smaller drivers and the detail and that really tight image versus that big sound. And it is a very different sound, and it's very hard if you had a score sheet in front of you to quantify this qualitative assessment of these two very different systems that are kind of two different purposes. If you have a small room or a recording studio, you're listening to that, dual 5 and tweeter or 6-inch and tweeter or 8-inch and tweeter setup that's super detailed, but it's not going to fill a big room or make a small room feel big.
Remember I was talking about my buddy's Blazer a while ago? There's a picture of it. And then I just remembered I had these in my drawer. Remember the amp rack and the Mustang I was telling you about?
Yep.
There's the top of it when it's down flush.
Clean wire challenge right there.
Clean wire before it was cool, right?
All right.
There it is, where it's halfway motorized up.
That's cool.
The Punch 15s.
Sweet.
And then you'll see, and then here's another picture of it almost up. So it had two Punch 45s and an OEQ1 on the front, and then on the back side was a little XV1.
Wow.
And all that. And then There's the. I took a lock unlock switch and wired it to that
Okay.
drill motor that
motorization.
rolled it up and down.
Yep.
The drill. That's so silly. I love that. That's so clever. Before it's time.
Ain't that funny? Yeah, right there, baby. Next year I'll just send in a picture.
Right, there you go.
Gary
That's
Biggs.
old
Next
school.
year, clean wire challenge.
That's the old school original streetwire fuse blocks.
We were just talking about that the other day. Like I wish there was like a dedicated badass wire company these days. Like we had street wires and what was the one with the weird name? I keep wanting to say Tiffany, but that's not it. It's it'll come to me. But
There was Vampire Wire, Streetwire, Perfect Interface was the Rockford stuff. Phoenix Gold had their stuff.
Esoteric.
Esoteric was kind of.
Like
I don't know if Esoteric was Streetwire after Streetwire or if Streetwire came after Esoteric, but it was basically the same company.
Oh, TIFF. That's
TIFF.
what I was trying to think of. Yep. TIFF had some really nice looking stuff.
Yep. That was the
That's like
high-end Streetwire version of the Streetwire stuff.
So much effort on that stuff, and now it just seems like everybody just like, here's my generic this that. Actually, like you're repping Audison. They have some cool distribution blocks and stuff now too.
Yep. Yeah, very cool. The Audison is really a great brand. It's a really great product. We do well with it. It sells great for us. So
Yep.
whether you think it's the greatest sounding stuff or not, it's definitely the coolest looking amp out there.
Yeah, that amp rack in the back of your car is impressive. That's the one that you don't see very often, you know?
Right. Yeah, and it was very straightforward. I mean, that mounting platform is where the big JBL amp mounted. So I just made a piece of plexi that mounts on top of it, basically. Backlit it with the neon and mounted the amps right onto it. I mean, it was really a very, very simple, very straightforward. Luckily.
You know you're OG when you call it neon.
Did I say neon?
Right.
I meant LEDs.
You did say neon, but hey, that just complements your time in the industry.
That's funny.
I love it.
I guarantee you, I have installed way more neon than I have LED.
Man, you remember those underbody kits, and then the what was the high voltage? Was it EL or was it? I'm trying to think what those other tubes we had for a while. The transformers would buzz like crazy.
Uh-huh.
You know, that's the other thing that the kids of today just don't get, Gary.
Oh, I know.
All those old cars had noise gates, noise problems. Like,
You know,
I feel like that's
I probably pat myself on the back the most, even to today, on troubleshooting, because I have dealers all over my territory, and guys all over the country really will call me or send me a message about something troubleshooting related, and I generally have a pretty good idea of where to send them to get started, because when I started installing, part of your install was troubleshooting every single car. Every car. In the summer of 1987, whenever I'm working on a Honda that had a radio delete panel, and I'm adding an antenna and a radio and running wires, because there are no wires anywhere in the car, and doing an amp and doing whatever, then I also got to know, okay, and you would figure it out, didn't know why, didn't understand, open-ended outputs or balance or any of that stuff, but you started figuring out, okay, when I install a Sony cassette, I need to run a ground trace from the RCA back to my amp or whatever. But when I do a Concord, I don't have to. Some people are saying, Concord, what's that? I probably installed a Concord every day of my life for the first 2 or 3 years of my being in the business.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Matt, this was before every amp. The majority of amps came with differential inputs. And
I know. Every time he keeps talking about 1987, I was just like an embryo.
Yeah.
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 But
When you have to worry about, somebody comes back, hey, you put a system in my car a year ago, and all of a sudden it's got noise.
Yeah.
Well, have you done anything to the car lately? Well, I had the spark plugs changed.
Right.
Oh, they put non-resistor plugs in, didn't they?
Yeah. So in 1990, I think it was 90, I took the very first MECP test in Dallas. There was about 40 guys that took the test. And I remember one of the questions was, what size wrench do you use to put on a Cell brand antenna, universal antenna? I mean, that was one of the questions.
It's like 13/16 or something?
Yeah, I don't even remember.
I just wanted to see the look on Matt's face as if I actually knew. I don't remember.
But that was the kind of questions that were on the MECP test back then.
I remember the first question. The first question on the first test that I took was, what's the first thing you do before, or what's the first step of any install? And it was making sure there were no tools in your pockets. And I'm like,
yeah. So when I went to work at the hi-fi shop, I mentioned that one of the guys, Doug, and I've kind of gotten reacquainted with Doug in the past year. Awesome guy, showed me a lot of stuff. But he had a toolbox in the shop, and when I first started, installing back there, he's like, Gary, you can use any tool I have, but you got to write it down on this piece of paper. And he taped a piece of paper onto the wall, and I'm like, oh, well, he just wants to make sure I don't lose anything. And so this is no lie. So that first 2 or 3 days, I wrote down everything I used. The first time the Snap-on guy showed up, he walks me out there with that piece of paper and says, this boy needs one of everything on here.
That's
so
awesome.
That was my how I got started on what tools I needed. And
that's awesome.
The very first ever air tool I bought was a Blue Point little air saw. I still have it.
Oh, wow.
Had to have it back then because every car was metal. You had to cut holes for every door. I mean, I remember... and you'd never do it today, but I remember cutting the dash on several old 68, 69 GTO cars with the walnut, with the walnut wood trim, cutting that out to put a DIN radio in.
So I think I've told this story once before on the podcast, and you even predate me a few years on starting your install career, but I remember working at Circuit City, and I had only heard about the most legendary, most difficult car to put a radio in. And all of a sudden I looked down and I saw one on the schedule, and I'm like, I want it. I want to try it. And in rolls a Datsun B210. As far as I remember, you couldn't fit the radio in from the front of the dash. You basically had to cut the dash out, slide the radio in behind, and it was notoriously like the most difficult car to put it in. And I remember cutting that dash out, and I was all excited that I had conquered the hardest car to do at the time.
In the old Jaguars with all the fiber optic cables that go around to light everything up, and it's all the foil bent over on the back. I mean, oh my God, I might have nightmares tonight. Those were good times, though. You know what? I'm so glad that I tell people all the time. I say, man, I'm so glad I kind of got my start at that time because, like not long ago, somebody asked me, well, man, what would I have to do to get a job like yours? And I'm like, you know what? I mean, luckily I got into car audio when that's all it was car audio. You know what I mean? I learned and I developed as the industry developed. You know what I mean? Granted, there was car audio before my time, but not many years before. Only, I got into it in 87. They started building real car amps and stuff like in the 78, 79. So it was a very infant, car audio was in its infancy, really. So having got into it and learned all the good, the bad, and the ugly from the very beginning, you'd almost have to have an engineering degree, an acoustic degree, a sales and advertising and marketing degree. I mean, all the things that, we've just picked up and learned because we've been here for so long.
You have to be a woodworker, an upholstery guy, an electrician.
Yep. All of that. And like when I was in high school, we had wood shop, we had metal shop, and then FFA had like their own shop. It was more kind of like mechanicking, and I mean I took all that stuff. I mean I was all about it. My very first box that I built for my Mustang. Built it out of birch plywood. I stained it, dadoed all the corners, everything. I mean, it was built like a cabinet. That's why it's hard to find installers and stuff nowadays, because they're just not exposed to it at a younger age. You know what I mean? Like maybe a lot of us were.
Yeah, it was definitely. I feel like it was more widespread back then.
But I've been so lucky. I mean, I've traveled the world over car audio. You know what I mean? And I got friends. I mean, it's silly. Like on, I mean, I had to delete people on Facebook so I could add other people here recently. They max you out. I mean, I know people. I got friends from almost every country in the world. People I've actually shook hands and met. You know what I mean?
Isn't that awesome that you've traveled the world because of car audio?
It is. Hey, I'm going to show you something real cool. Hang on one second.
So excited.
All right, here's your chance to become a millionaire. See
Piece
that?
of the
What do you see there?
Berlin Wall? What is that?
Oh, you're so close.
Really?
You see that's curved, right? That stone. So when I was in Greece, and we were up on top at the Acropolis, so all the countries I go to, I always collect a rock about the size of a marble, and I have friends that travel, and they all bring me back a rock. One of my kids' softball hitting coach, he's older and retired, still gives her lessons, and he and his wife travel a lot. Like once a month they're going somewhere. And so now he's like, yeah, I don't go on vacation. I go rock finding for Gary. That's what it's called. So anyways, we're in Greece, and we're up on the Acropolis, and I walk over. They're like restoring this thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I just thought, man, does this big thing, does it vibrate? Does it wiggle or what? This giant column? And this rock like fell out in my hand. And so I took it. Look right here, it's kind of hard to see, but right there, that's a groove. So this thing's big around, it looks like it's got grooves. I mean, that is a piece of that thing.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So I might get locked up after this.
You're gonna get a text. You're gonna get a text from me next time we're overseas, and I'm gonna be like, "Hey, do you have a
right.
a pebble from Nice?"
I'll be like, "Hey, bring it back." So I collect old car audio. I collect rocks. I collect baseball cards.
What's your best baseball card?
I have a full collection of of everything Mickey Mantle, all graded.
1952 Topps rookie card. Do you have one?
Yep.
Really?
And I have full sets of all Topps from 58 to present.
So you got a 52 Mickey Mantle rookie card.
Yeah. In fact, I'll show you. I can probably find a video here of the collection, and they're all graded.
That's like the holy grail of baseball cards.
Yeah. There's
second holy grail.
What's the
I'll find the video and
Honus Wagner.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'll find the video and text it to you. Now, my mantle collections, everything spreads from a 1 grade to a 3 grade, depending on what it is. It's not super high end, but they've increased their value tremendously over the last several years.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I got my ball card collecting started in high school. A good friend of mine was Tim Bench. His uncle was Johnny Bench. So Tim had cool cards that we gave us, traded. I bought some, and then one day, me and one of my buddies was in the library geeking out on ball cards, and our junior high principal walked by, and he saw us in there, and he's thinking, all right, these dudes are usually causing trouble. What are they doing in here? Right? Mm-hmm. So he comes in and sees those cards, and so we didn't know at the time, but he played pro ball for the Phillies. So next day he comes in with all these old cards from the 50s. And so he had like 3 and 4 of everything, but he didn't have any of the newer stuff. So we traded with him a lot of the new stuff for some old stuff. So that's where I got some of my original old stuff. But yeah, I got same thing. Hank Aaron, William A. I mean, all the super players. I've got all their cards. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, anyways, so that's back to being able to travel and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think about it all the time, about all the cool stuff that I've got to do and people I know and places I've been and, just all that stuff. I mean, I would have never been able to do anything if it wasn't for this job.
I think there's a good message here, Gary Bell. I got to distinguish who I'm talking to.
Which
Gary's
GB
on.
you're talking to?
Yeah. for like all the younger people, because we have such a diverse people that listen to this. We have enthusiasts, we have DIYers, we have shop people, we have salesmen, we have installers. We have every single demographic really listening to this podcast.
And my parents.
And Gary's parents. Gary Bell's parents. But I think the same thing every guest has in common is just immense passion, right? Passion is what gets us through all the dark times of everything that we've ever gone through in this industry. And passion is what is always going to make you succeed, right? And I think that people listening, if they are younger installers or salesmen, they already have passion because they've sought this out to listen to in their free time. So just like understand that passion, and this kind of goes to like Chip Foose's keynote that he had at the expo, is sometimes you just got to give even though you're not getting it back at that very moment. So just keep giving and giving and giving and investing in your passion, and eventually at some point there's going to be a payoff.
And the payoff comes in so many
Different forms.
Faces and forms. Absolutely. Yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, just all kinds of, used to when Andy and I worked for Harman, and when all the sales and marketing offices was out on Long Island in Woodbury, and like whenever I would go up there, Gary coming to town, Andy wanted to make sure I was entertained or whatever, and the company would have different tickets for basketball, different stuff, and it was always well, we know Gary's coming to town. You know what I mean? When the tickets aren't available to somebody else. I remember, going to a basketball game and Fat Joe, sitting one seat over from me, under the goal. Wow. I mean, just would have never, ever been able to do that on my own. You know what I mean? The years of, working with Will and those guys on the Unique Whips show. I mean, I'm wearing one of those shirts tonight.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
The show is what it is. But it was still a great experience, in the people that I met, because of him. Andrew Jones, baseball player that played for, Yankees, Rangers, Braves, personal friends with him. Several of his cars, cool. His father-in-law's car. I've gone out to Atlanta, picked them up, brought them back to my place, worked on them, delivered them. I've got jerseys, bats signed by him. You know what I mean? And just the list goes on. Gary Sheffield, just tons of those people. It ain't people I talk to every day, but we're friends in some capacity at one time. A lot of people can't say that. And it's all car audio. Car audio's afforded all of that. And it's funny. My kid, one of her friends will say something to her like, "What's your dad do?" And she's like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No kid of a car audio person ever knows how to explain what their parent does.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. My wife's got a professional job, and she laughs and pokes fun and says, I don't work. Mm-hmm. And I kind of don't. You know what I mean? I do, but I don't.
You have to play.
Yeah. But you don't.
Yeah. So it's cool.
That's awesome.
It's fun because, like, growing up, even though this isn't car audio related, but I was super big into memorabilia, right? So I was like an autograph seeker as a kid, and I grew up with a single dad. It was just me and my dad. And my dad was always the best setup guy, period, when it came to autographs, because somehow he would always talk to the most important people. He'd talk to players' parents somehow. He would talk to players in a bar and get them to, come out and sign stuff for me. And like, I was into like WWE back in the day, and somehow like we would go to the hotels after like Raw and all that kind of stuff, and he'd be in the bar and he'd be talking to Ric Flair and just having a conversation, and then Ric Flair would come out, ignore everybody, sign my stuff, take a picture, and then he'd go up to his hotel room. Like, he was the best. And I'll never forget, like, my grandparents lived in Winter Haven, Florida, which is where the Cleveland Indians had spring training. And this is when the Cleveland Indians were like America's team, and they had like David Justice, Manny Ramirez, Roberto Alomar, Sandy Alomar, They had Jim Tomei, Omar Vizquel. I mean, they were like an all-star team. Kenny Lofton, and my dad, he like saw Al Bunbury, who used to play for the Orioles, and we're from Maryland. He was like, "Hey, just want to talk to you." And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, Al Bunbury's golfing with us at my grandparents' country club, and then I'm the next day in the clubhouse of spring training playing ping pong with Manny Ramirez and Jim Tomei. And just getting like all their autographed like cleats and bats and stuff like that. My dad was the best setup guy when it came to memorabilia. But unfortunately, I sold a lot of stuff trying to put my wife through nursing school. So I parted ways with so much of like my memorabilia from my childhood. But all growing up through life, it was sports cards, memorabilia, all that kind of stuff.
Yep. No, that's cool.
Unfortunately, all my collecting went into Roger Clemens baseball cards, which are now worth nothing.
Hey, they're
That's
making
the most
a comeback.
Gary Bell thing I've ever heard.
They're making a comeback.
It's terrible. Terrible.
Yeah,
Oh,
look.
that's
In
fun.
fact, here's something else I'll show you.
Uh-oh. Good old show and tell. Mickey Mantle, signed baseball.
Yep. Real deal.
Wow.
And that looks like super clean, too.
It is. I shouldn't even be handling it, but you know what?
Yeah.
It's,
That's super
it ain't
clean.
something that I'm ever selling. I have no
Yeah.
intention or need. I mean, if I sold it, would be a last resort, and somebody would have to pay what I was wanting for it anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got a bunch.
That's a super clean
One
baseball.
gold. Would you trade it for the missing gold Orion amp?
I
Maybe.
might.
Yeah.
I might.
Maybe.
If anybody out there has a gold Orion amp with Gary's name on it,
Yep, I might. Yeah.
and wants a Mickey Mantle ball.
I should have been more cool that day that I found the box, because I bet you there was other stuff there. I got a feeling that shop
Yeah.
probably somehow
They got more than the amp.
Yeah, I think so. But man, it was like I was, you know what I mean? I was kind of like, I was pissed, I was happy, I was everything in the world. You know what I mean? Funny.
Roller coaster of emotions.
Absolutely.
I'll give you a minute to put that baseball back so it's not just sitting on your desk rolling around.
I got it right. I set it on this little microfiber towel.
Because I'm shocked of how clean that baseball was. It's not going to find many like that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So it's funny talking about that rock. So I have a good buddy of mine that he went to Saudi Arabia back during, I don't know, 20 years ago. And I told him, I said, hey, bring me back a rock. And so he's gone for like 8 months. He comes back and literally, I mean, I'm one of his first stops. He's like, hey, Biggs, I got you something better than a rock. And so they're on my shelf. So he's got this little vase, this little vial, it's full of sand. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. He brought me some sand back from the desert. He goes, inside is a black scorpion.
Ooh.
I've yet to ever open it to get to it. I'm not going to.
I think tomorrow's the day you kind of dump it out and you're seeing if he was full of shit or not.
Yeah, funny.
And then you report back with your findings, because I'm very curious if there's actually a scorpion. in there.
I've always wondered, but I'm like, that dude might still be alive. I don't know.
Also might be bad luck if you dump it out.
Right, it would be like some kind. I open the
Yeah.
top and some kind of
Yeah,
black
it's not
scorpion
good. Yeah.
ghost comes out. Oh. No, I mean, as a kid, I didn't really have much. I'm not going to say we were poor, but we, you know what I mean, maybe a notch or two above it. You know, people always like, man, why you got all that stuff? Why do you keep all that stuff? Why do you save all that stuff? And I guess it's just, as a kid, I didn't want it because I didn't know about it. You know what I mean? Now, as an adult, I know about it and I like it. I like nice things. That's why I try to do all the right things to have nice things. So I just collected, I acquired. If I wanted, I honestly, like my wife, well, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, nothing. I mean, I really have everything I want. Because if I want it, I go get it. You know what I mean?
So,
If I wanted,
so
I get
your
it.
massive car audio collection that you've been posting pictures of
Yeah.
lately, was that stuff that you've had since it was new, or have you been collecting the whole time, or how did that amass?
So the first shop I worked at, we sold Rockford. So I've always been a Rockford guy. And then I went to work at a shop, and we were kind of like the Orion shop. So, and everywhere I ever worked at after that, they always sold Rockford or Ryan, so I always was able to keep those two brands kind of in my blood. So like that picture I showed you a while ago of the woofers and the amp rack, I still have those two 15s. I still have the Punch 45 and the OEQ1 processor. I still have the wiring fuse block on top. So I still have almost my original system ever. You know, like for example, over some of the times of like the Kicker builds, when I had those Kicker XS100 amplifiers, those 5 amps, I still have all those amps. I still have the purple amps that were in the car whenever we painted it orange and did purple amps. You know, I still got my JBL amps. So all the stuff I've ever had in any of my cars, I've still got all of that. And then along the way, I've collected a lot of stuff. Like for example, like talking about Rockford, like the Power 1000, the black one. It originally was, you know, long Power 1000. It had a caboose. The caboose was that extra panel that hid the power and ground terminal wiring and stuff. So it was just a real clean install. And then when Wayne went to work at Rockford, in order for him to fit those amps back there, he had to lose the caboose. And he cut the mounting tab and everything off. So, and Rockford liked that, so they started offering it without caboose. So I have black Power 1000 with caboose. I have black Power 1000 with no caboose. I have Chrome 1000, no caboose. I have Chrome Terminator Power 1000. The Terminator was a special edition that they did for Wayne with his Terminator hearse. And I have the very last ever built Power 1000 Chrome that Rockford ever had on the assembly line. I bought it from Ron Trout. And I've got, so before Rockford Fosgate was Rockford, when it was just Fosgate, I collected all their amplifiers, all the PR amplifiers. I have the original small Power Punch that was an underdash. And so as I collected all those, then once you have them all, what do? Well, you got to get better versions. So I've got them all brand new in the box as well. So I'm fixing to actually sell a bunch of that stuff that's open, you know, used out of the box, and keep the stuff that's new in the box. And then I have a lot of quirky one-off stuff that I've acquired over time. You know, when I worked at Rockford, I built my own woofer that was in a car, a 12-inch woofer, and I liquid cooled it. You know, I built a aluminum bowl that mounted between the basket and the magnet. I sealed off the bump plate, and so liquid flows all around the magnet. You know, I hand built that myself there. You know, again, how many people can say they built their own woofer? You know what I mean?
Right.
Built their own liquid cooled woofer. All my Kicker.
Gary Bell, next year at the Expo, we have some sort of display that has like a car audio museum.
That would be
People
cool.
bring all their old school stuff on display and maybe you can factor it into something else, but people make some sort of displays that are uniform, that display all the different product.
Wow.
That would be super cool. Right?
That would be cool. Yeah, that's a must do. That's a must do.
That'd be very cool.
That's a heck of a theme for next year.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
If you could get all the manufacturers to like kind of have that as a theme throughout their booths.
Yeah, and people can bring what they have that's iconic. Do you think Steve Brown would bring a Blackbird?
No, 100% no.
You know,
did I ever tell you that I had a car that I traded in when I left Alpine? A couple weeks before I left Alpine, I bought a new car, and I traded in my old car, and I could have just as easily taken the Blackbird out of the radio, and I did not. I left it and traded it in, and said, "I'll take the extra $50 for having navigation in the car."
Oh, funny.
No,
you know,
I think that's a great idea. You need to write that down. I think next year we need to have some sort of a Canton
history of car audio
of car audio.
Absolutely.
And everyone can just bring what they have and kind of show off the original equipment of everything back in the day.
Yep.
That'd be so cool.
You know, Gary, you being at Alpine, you know about this, but I have Alpine cassette changer.
Oh, geez, yep.
You know,
there used to be one in the lobby, and I don't know what happened to it. Those displays actually came out they took them out of the lobby just after I left, and I have no idea what happened to it, but they had it like a mint one in the lobby.
Yep.
That is rare.
Yeah, I heard about it, but mine, the one I have, is the only one I've ever seen. I know there's not many out there, but I have all the stuff to do an Alpine. One of these days, I want to do a vintage correct system in the 87 Grand National. And I have Alpine cassette changer. I got the security module to connect to the radio. I got Alpine 7909. I got the 8080 alarm. I got the keypad. I got all the Alpine pin switches. I even I got
3545s.
Yep. I got the phone. I even have the little box to send and receive a fax in your car. I got the dot matrix printer. I mean, literally everything.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there's stuff. Sometimes I open boxes of stuff and go, where'd that even come from?
So apparently Gary Biggs is bringing a storage unit to next year's expo to fill in the car audio.
Yeah, maybe I'll just supply the museum.
Right.
I really
Goodness
probably
gracious.
could.
Holy crap. I have one for you. My first real amplifier I bought used from a local Rockford dealer who helped kind of mentor me and get me into the game. And it was everybody I talked to doesn't remember this amp. I'm hoping you do. Power 360.
Yep. I have one.
And
Of course.
One came up on eBay and somebody had screwed with it and made a different shroud for it and stuff, but yeah. Someday I feel like I need one of those hanging on the wall.
So I have one, and I also have a brand new 360 heatsink that's never had a board or anything mounted in it. And so it's mint, and the badge that says Rockford Fosgate that clicks on the top of it, I got it brand new mint.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is that an eBay find, or was it a shop that going out of business or something?
The one I got was a shop going out of business. And recently, another shop that I did some business with went out of business, and they were a big time Rockford dealer through the 80s and early 90s. And so I got a bunch of different manuals, service manuals, and stuff like that. I mean, legit Rockford service manual.
I feel like Gary Biggs could pay admission to his house to just like walk through and see everything he's got stored around.
Did I hear Graceland's for sale? Maybe we'll just move the Rockford Museum into Graceland.
So this is every wire schematic of all the Rockford amps, all the way back to the original little power punch. And here's what's cool. And I had sent this to Ada. He was going to try to incorporate this into their pod.
Into their build, yeah.
If I can get that close enough, drawn by Jim Fosgate.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's all in pencil. There's probably DNA on that paper. Ain't that crazy?
That's
But yeah, so think about it. This would be in the service rack. You'd figure out whatever amp, you'd go over and open this up and go to that amp. Just crazy. Oh, look, here's something else cool. So you've seen the Maxell poster. Here's a brand new Maxell window shade. Yeah,
I appreciate the collector in you, Mr. Biggs. I love it.
I have a bunch of crap, and I hear about it
cooler
every
than
day.
Crap.
I hear about it every day from my wife and kid. My kid, she has really come on strong, blistering me about my ball cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Millions.
Sounds cool.
Millions of cards, not just a few. Millions.
I'm so mad that I've departed with everything that I've owned, baseball-wise. I used to go to Cooperstown when they had the inductions and get all the autographs of all the old inductees and the new inductees, and then you make the rounds and you meet like Raleigh Fingers and get him to sign a baseball, and talk to Ernie Banks and get him to sign a baseball. Dude, that's my childhood in a nutshell.
Yeah. So my newest quest is, since I graduated high school in '87, I took a full Topps '87 set, and I've been mailing cards to the players. There's a deal on Facebook through the mail, TTM, through the mail autographs, and so it's just kind of a Facebook group like anything, and everybody shares addresses and stuff like that. So I'm hoping at some point to either get the whole set autographed or as close to it. I may have to buy some if somebody's passed on or something. That's kind of one of my goals. Fill that whole set.
That would be awesome.
Be cool.
That is crazy. If you ever need some 87 Topps cards, I have way too many somewhere.
Oh yeah, I've got.
Funny thing is, when I was
That was
trying to
like
get my
the
wife
height.
through nursing school, I tried to sell everything that I owned. So I had like, I don't know what it was, maybe just like a random 1995 Signature Series cards, like Don Ross Signature Series cards signed by random players, right? So I was like parting each one out. And I had one of a random Colorado Rocky. I forget what the name was, but I sold it on eBay. And then when I went to ship it, I was like, because the name was the same name as the person on the card.
Oh, that's awesome.
I shipped like this, and this is how desperate I was. I shipped like $1.50 card to Colorado to the guy that I'm pretty sure was the Colorado Rocky who was on the card.
That's awesome.
Can't confirm, but it was a funny story.
No, that's cool. I remember at CS a few years ago, actually probably 20 years ago, I think it might have been the first or second year of Sirius XM. They had Pete Rose in the booth. So, I met him and got his autograph. And then leaving Knowledge Fest a few months ago, sat and talked to him next to him at the airport.
Oh, wow.
And it was funny because we were talking, and he's super cool. And he's like, so, you know who gave me my nickname, Charlie Hustle? I said, absolutely, Mickey Mantle. He looked at me like, well, how'd you know that? I said, man, I got every one of your ball cards. I got every one of his ball cards and
That's
everything
cool.
in between. So it was cool. It was a fun conversation. I told him,
awesome.
and I just, the whole time I'm thinking, get a selfie. But I just didn't. You know what I mean? I don't know why. I just didn't. It was, to me, it was good enough having the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And sometimes you just got to shoot your shot to have that picture.
yeah. But it was cool.
Back in the Cleveland Indian days when we went to those training camps, following the ping pong in the locker room, we then had a dinner with, it was Al Bunbury, it was my dad. I don't even know how this happened, but it was also David Justice and Holly Berry when he was married to Holly Berry.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I was like a 7-year-old kid. And I didn't even know who Holly Berry was at the time. And here I'm just like, I can't believe I'm at the Olive Garden with David Justice.
No, that's cool.
Oh, man.
That's cool.
But it's nice to know that you're a memorabilia degenerate like I am.
Yeah. I'll find that video of all those Mantle cards. I'll show you. So I used to have them stacked up in my closet next to my little safe. One day I walked by, and I looked, and I noticed something was different. And I walked back, and I could tell they weren't, they were. And so I said something to my kid, my daughter. I said, hey, were you in my closet? And she was like, uh-oh. I said, were you messing with my cards? I just took a picture. I said, of what? Oh, one of the boys in class was talking, and I told him that my dad had Mickey Mantle cards, and he didn't believe me, so I laid them out and took a picture. How'd you know? I was like, well, not only do I know everything I have a photographic memory of where it's at. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so all that stuff is in the safe, but now I've had that safe about 30 years, and now the battery isn't strong enough to kick the little deal open. So I'm going to have to cut that thing open to get inside.
Mm.
Oh, no.
That was probably the only time you've ever thought about slapping your daughter in the face.
But you know what's funny is like she won't go near anything now because she thinks I got eyes all over the place.
Keep them guessing.
Yeah, she's a good kid. But it was funny. She couldn't believe I recognized that.
So other than Another One Bites the Dust, what are the next 2 songs that you would use to judge a system for yourself? Because we keep a rolling Spotify playlist of what each guest kind of says of what their tracks are. And Gary is now grabbing a pen and paper so he doesn't make a listener write this down.
Oh,
He's got his
Matt,
magic
you forgot your magic tricks, Matt.
Another song that I like a lot, and it may just be part of it is, I'm a Lionel Richie fan. Penny Lover is a good one I like.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily like critical listening or nothing like that. But I just feel like I know his voice well enough to know if a sound system, is reproducing that well enough. And then, golly, it's such a good question. Probably there's several tracks. This might sound silly. Several Garth Brooks songs. Obviously, Garth is a local from here, and I'm friends with his wife. I've done systems in her car and stuff, and their kids' cars. So, I'm kind of maybe intimate or sensitive to the voice, so I know it and I recognize it. So, that's it. I'm not a tiki. I don't tweak out and try to put a piano track in everybody's car. You know what I mean? That's not me. That's fine and all, but there's probably a handful of songs. Like I said, a couple songs from Lionel Richie. Penny Lover's a good one. Queen, that, like I said, another one, Bites the Dust. And these are songs too. You know what I mean? I've just been around them and heard them forever. You know what I mean? I just recognize.
I feel like
them
that's how most of our playlists are. It's not really for super critical listening. It's more or less because we know the song and we know how it should perform. And
but what you just said reminded me of something. So years ago, this is late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. I'm building all these cars for all these guys. And I built many cars that won USAC and IASCA World Championships through the 90s, well before my car ever started winning. I would always be on stage, 5th place, 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place, 3rd place. It wasn't until 1999 that I won first finals. And then, I won like every one that I competed in. After that, like 7 or something. But part of the reason at that time that I wasn't able to win, and it took me a while to figure it out, was really I was spending all my time building everybody's cars and building my car, but I didn't understand tuning. I didn't understand what sound quality was. And we were connected with some pretty good tuning guys. Greg Davis, that was at Kicker at the time. I mean, he's a great musician, guitarist, plays instruments. And so he, was in a band and different things. So just really good at knowing music, knowing what it's supposed to sound like. When he hears a guitar, he knows, oh, that don't sound like it's supposed to or whatever. And I kind of felt like I got the short end of the stick because all these other cars I was building, they all won. Well, there was plenty of butt time in those cars tuning and not as much butt time in mine tuning. I felt like I was getting the short end of the stick. So I figured I got to learn. I got to learn how to tune. Well, my oldest daughter, we signed her up for guitar lessons. And so I would take her. And so as she's learning to play guitar, I'm learning to play guitar. And the first song that particular instructor taught was Smoke on the Water. Easy song. He claims it's the easiest song that anybody in the world can learn to play it, blah, blah, blah. And it's true because I learned to play it. So what I would do is I'd sit in my garage and first of all, I remember having Tim, a guy I worked with, we went over to his house and we recorded me playing Smoke on the Water. Put it onto a disc, and then I could play that back and I could sit in my car and so I didn't know how to tune. I just equalized the system to sound like that guitar sounded. And that really took up so much of the space that I was able to kind of tune my car. And once I did that, and once my car started doing better, then I started getting the help that I needed from some of the other guys that in our circle that was helping with tuning. So I guess one of the things is a lot of installers and people, they can build amazing stuff, but they don't know how to tune, or they're not comfortable in tuning, or they don't know how to tune. Well, you can figure it out easy enough. Just use things at your disposal. Mm-hmm. And I got that idea by some judge, I don't recall who. They even were joking, saying, man, just get you some pots and pans and bang on them and record them and then see how it sounds in your car. See if it's got the same, reverberance and everything when you hit that pan. Mm-hmm. And that's true. You don't have, because here's the deal, let's be honest. You can sit down in any car and listen to any music, and unless you know that artist or you've been there and heard them live intimately close, how do you know what, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know how many people have ever truly listened to, what's her name, Rebecca Pigeon in real life, but yet you're going to put a CD in the car and tell me if she sounds good or not?
Right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's a great point.
More simpler ways of doing that and more complicated ways too, but you just got to take your destiny kind of into your own hand when it comes to tuning. And it's all subjective. You know, and like back in the day, you know, and I still got them. You know, like I said, I save everything. I got a stack probably this thick of IASCA and USAC judging score sheets. You know, if you were ever in my car, I've got your notes. I know what you liked and what you didn't like. But so something else that reminded me of, several times people used to say, man, what is your biggest secret to competition, to winning? I'm like, what do you mean? They're going, man, what's your biggest secret? I said, man, I used to always keep a cassette recorder under my seat.
Oh,
so
that's
I knew who
smart.
I knew who liked me. I knew who did not like me. I knew what they liked. I knew what they didn't like.
Wow.
And and I still have that cassette recorder in my top of my toolbox. I don't know if it works. Probably the belts are probably bad. But yeah, so I would.
If you have some of those tapes, we might want to start.
That's a
releasing
great
those.
nugget.
Yeah.
I like that.
So yeah,
How many people are wincing right now?
probably a bunch, Will. Probably a bunch, because I can tell you there's dudes that have sat in my car, and I don't even know if they judge the car because they're too busy talking about the chicks walking around and stuff like that. I mean, and you know, but it's amazing because what you're doing is, if you have 4 judges that are going to listen to your car, you better figure out how to make it sound great for them. And if they like lots of bass, well, then you bump up the bass. If they don't like very much treble, then you learn to back it down. So that's a part of it. You know what I mean? You gotta know your competition. It's no different than the Dallas Cowboys sending, you know, scouters out to video, and you know what I mean, every game going on out there or whatever. Or
I love
pitchers.
how much competition that we've revealed behind the scenes on this podcast.
Yeah.
Like everyone is told their intimate details of how they competed back in the day.
Yeah.
That's a good nugget. I like that. That's probably one of the most clever things that I've heard yet.
I always heard rumors about people doing that, but I never had anybody confirm them until now.
Oh yeah. Well, most people aren't going to like blast it, and I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, but. You know,
But Gary Biggs is a man of the people. He's going to let people know what happened.
You learn who some people are. Like I said, what's amazing is you find out who really don't like you. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Oh, that guy's an asshole. Man, I'm not an asshole. I'm in battle. You know what I mean? I'm trying to make sure that, because back then, you know, I'd have 4 Rain EQs in my car, a pair for sound quality, 1 for RTA, and 1 for SPL. And I'd have a 6x9 in the rear deck that nobody knew about that was hooked to a little amp that was to one of the RTA EQs. So when I went to RTA, only that 6x9 played, because it's easy to make one speaker have a smooth, flat response. It's hard to make a woofer and mids.
I
and
feel like
mid-bass
Gary
and
was
tweeters.
the biggest sneaky competitor back in the day. Because I've learned that he used the tape recorder. He had the subwoofer up front for a while that nobody knew about.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, you know, you got to make sure that, okay, I got to turn my EQ, or turn my sound cue system off, turn the RTA system on, and then after that, you're turning it off and turning the subwoofer system on. One small move, and now the judges are listening to a 6x9 coming from the back.
So how many times have you messed up something that got you the L because you didn't set it up right for the right time?
Yeah, no. I luckily always double. Well, so I was even sneakier. I would have like all the EQs, you know, had on off, and I would run a little LED up to the dash that when that EQ is on, that LED would be on. And I'd put resistors on them, so those LEDs were only I knew what they were. So I could easily, and so what's funny is I just saw somebody post a picture. that was in a magazine of me sitting on the side of the car looking at the dash. And even the caption says, Gary giving his system a one last look over or something. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm trying to make sure that I got the right amps turned on right now. So you know, I couldn't have been the only one. I know other guys were doing it. A lot of guys won't admit it, but like kick panels in the car. One time we had an international judges committee with judges from all over the world. And after the show was over, I mean, they all came over to me. Oh, Gary, we have a bet on what speakers you have in your car. I'm like, how much money are we talking? And I said, I'll tell you what, however much money y'all are betting, I said, I'll bet you guys the same amount of money that none of you can guess it correctly. And everyone was like, all right, you're on. So this is no lie. I took them over there and I put them in the car one at a time. And I pulled the dash grill off, no speakers. I pulled the under dash grill off, no speakers. I pulled the kick panels off, and then they saw the speakers. But the kick panels are in there on like 45-degree angles. That ain't what the pods are. The pods are in there on totally different angles. So what you see is not what you're listening to. And so, you know, people think there's horns. They think there's mid. The list goes on of what, you know, people have thought. And I did that on purpose. The reason when I built that dash, it's got the grill on the top and that grill across the bottom because I didn't really know what I was going to do. You know what I mean? I didn't really know what I would end up doing with angles or this or that. But also at the same time, I'm like, you know what? Because I had my tape recorder and hearing guys say, yeah, he's got a horn. You know, judges talking, oh man, those are beautiful sounding horns. Never heard horns sound so seamless like that coming out of the top of the dash. I'm like, there ain't no horns in there. I always wanted to use horns, but I didn't know enough about them. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to experiment. You know, I didn't have the time to experiment with it. So part of it is just, hey, if you think there's speakers in the top of the dash, yeah, they're there. If you think they're in the bottom, they're there too. You know what I mean?
Wherever you want them to be.
Right. So that was always my approach. But yeah, it's amazing what. And competitors, you know, when I stopped competing, it was amazing how many more friends I had.
Who was your biggest nemesis or pain in your side as you competed?
Oh man, so there was a guy from, I think he was South Carolina, North Carolina. This is this would be late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s. Man, I could not beat this guy. His name was Brantley Miller. And Brantley was a cool dude. He had a green Pontiac Firebird, or maybe it was a Trans Am. I would talk to judges like, no, your car sounds better. I'm like, man, I don't get it. So one day, I'm like, man, F this. So when he's doing his presentation to the judges, I'm up in his business, just like I'm a judge. And it wigged him out. He's like, kept thinking, what are you doing here? Get out of here, shoe fly. And I stayed right there. And so I learned everything about his car. So guess what? A month later, when we're at the same show again, all the little tricks and bells and whistles that dude had, now I've got them. So then I was able to start beating him whenever I could match him up on install. And it wasn't that his install was better than mine. The solid foundation was there. I just didn't have the little tricks. You know what I mean? Like a voltage gauge on, you know, with a temperature sensor on the back of every speaker, you know what I mean? And this and that, which by the way, sounds silly, but you know, people talk about, letting their system warm up or whatever. So what I learned about that is when you turn your car on, after you turn your vehicle on tomorrow morning, your speakers are cold, your amps are cold, everything's cooled down, right? As everything warms and heats up, everything changes. And the biggest change is your speakers. The impedance rises. You no longer have a 4 ohm mid-range. It's 7 or 8 or 10 ohm or something. And if you were tuning your car for hours and hours, and that speaker is really warm and whatever, and you're tuning everything to that amount of power, right, coming out of your amp and such, then, and that's your reference sound quality presentation, well, you need to achieve that. Because if you go into the lanes and just turn it on, it ain't going to sound necessarily the same. So, when I'd be in the lanes, my car never turned off. The sound system never turned off. It was on from the minute I got in the lanes till I was judged. You could feel the heat coming off of everything in there. So that's a layman's simple way of, talking about, everything. And the SPL guys get it. They call it box rise, but, impedance rise of the speakers, electronics, whatever. So just all those little things. A lot of guys don't know that or whatever, but, now with DSP, same thing. You know what I mean? It's just, you don't have to worry about so many factors. I don't think. Just like my car, even now, whenever I got home and downloaded it out of the trailer, I turned it on, and it sounded different than what I remember it sounding like after it's been on, like all day at the expo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's the dirtiest trick you ever heard somebody else using?
Oh man!
You don't have to name names. What's the dirtiest rumor that went around?
It wasn't out of mind for a lot of guys to have hidden products, hidden amplifiers. So one time I built a competition system. I'm not going to say any names because that will give this away, and I don't want to do that. Myself and someone else, a good friend of mine, built a competition car for a company, for a competitor, and it was all a certain brand of speakers and amplifiers. It was a company that made everything, and when it was said and done, they had shipped us speakers from this other company and this company and that company, amplifiers of a different brand in their heat sinks. Ridiculous. But it was one of them deals. Hey, they want to win at all costs, and they know that they got a product that maybe ain't as par as it should be. So that was pretty snaky and pretty stinky. But you know what I mean. A lot of people did similar things.
It was also different back in the day when everything was based off of power classes, and there was a lot of room to cheat with.
Right.
Right.
And like I said, like my car, when I had 5 XS100s back there, I had one amplifier going through a pair of passives to a pair of tweeters and a pair of mids, another amp going to a subwoofer. That left 3 amplifiers. So one of those amps ran the 6x9 that was for my RTA. You know what I mean? So sneaky and cheating? Not really. The amplifier is right there in front of you. I just didn't show the 6x9 mounted in the rear deck.
Did you skip that part in your install presentation?
They only give you 7 minutes, so I just didn't get that far. But a lot of that stuff, people keep pretty tight to themselves. Unless you're pretty close. If you're in the circle of somebody, or like me, a lot of cars that I built were also built kind of off the same foundation of how I built mine. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't be uncommon for me to hide a 6x9 for RTA for another competitor. Or back then you weren't able to make adjustments, so we'd have for SQ we'd have the woofer wired, a dual 4-ohm woofer wired in series, so it's 8 ohm. So you really got to turn that amp up to get some output going to it for SQ, and then have a relay bank with one of those big Jacobs resistors to switch it to 1 ohm. You know what I mean? So now you're getting 10 times the power out of your amp. But you weren't supposed to make any adjustments, so that might be as simple as having an alarm tilt sensor or impact sensor that's just the sensor by itself strapped to your steering column. So when you get out, you bang your steering wheel kind of hard. It triggers that relay that now switched the amp in the back. So, but again, you got to have that little LED hidden, or you don't know if it happened or not. Lots of stuff like that, and I
love this podcast.
I mean, and
I
everybody
love the stuff that I learn, and the stuff that I learn about people, because obviously, I wasn't around during those times, and I've just got to envision all the different people competing back in the day, and that fills in all the null and voids for me, where obviously I was a child when all that happened, but just to see the ruthless competition and the sneakiness. Dude,
it was a big deal to win back then.
I know. I love it. But I get to see everything that everyone has in common.
Yeah.
And all the things that you guys did paved the way of the opportunities that has allowed me to make this a career, right? Because if you guys didn't do all that, car audio wouldn't have been a thing. You know what I'm saying?
No,
It
I
had
agree.
to take people like you guys to make car audio a thing for it to continue generations.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. You know, it's every industry. Racing. Think of all the
Right.
stuff those dudes
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
You know,
Uh-huh.
I remember a buddy of mine down in Lawton years ago. He had a complete wet nitrous system plumbed on the inside of his intake manifold, and the line went out the very back by the distributor. I mean, you did not know it was. You know, he had nitrous on that thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, so
Yeah, I mean, it's very true.
every industry, every sport has its little something. But probably amplifiers is probably the biggest deal. You know, guys would put a cheater amp in a regular heat sink or something, and you know, there's really no way of knowing unless you take it apart. And ain't nobody's got time for that. Like I said, I'm sure everybody had their little things. Not many people will talk about it. I think it's funny.
I can
don't
just see
care.
Matt with the clickbaity title for this podcast of like the lid blown off of car audio competition in the 80s.
Yeah.
Deep secrets revealed.
Yeah, I feel like it's an image of Chris Hansen, not even Gary Biggs. Just like sit down, let's talk. We got to discuss some stuff.
No, it's
fun.
awesome. Man, the friendship, just all the cool stuff. I mean, you know, Brian and all you guys putting together the Master Tech Expo. I mean, what a unreal show, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's
Matt's too young for this, but to me, it really felt like the vibe of like a cool spring break nationals or something where like back in the day, and the vibe is there, the people are there, the energy's there.
everybody is there with the same
Intent.
thought,
Yeah.
dream, desire, that's the biggest deal. They could change the name. Brian could change that to the want to, because everybody there wants to do and be a part of the same thing. There's not a CS, SEMA, I don't care. The percentage of people there with the very same, want.
Vision and passion. Yeah.
Like I've tried to describe to other people is just one, it's engaging like no other event. It's just always engaging. Because obviously you have the AV guys there when they have the build-offs or the keynote. They're just switching between camera angles, and it feels like you're watching a TV show when you're sitting there in the audience. So even the vendors are like watching the screen, and they're being entertained while they're sitting there entertaining the people walking around. So that's number one. And then obviously number two is just the event in general. You're getting such a diverse background, especially with all the different vendors being there in one space so close to each other, right? So generally, if you go to a SEMA or a CES and you have to talk to all these different vendors and this laser company, that CNC company, like you're traveling all over the place to talk to all these people. And this is all within a 100-yard walk to talk to every vendor, to talk to every tech company, everyone that is really inclusive within your industry at this point in time. There's no other event like it, period.
No, there's not. And I mean, it's just awesome for there to be that, awesome to be a part of it, and just the friends. I mean, because you look around and Facebook is very helpful, because when you look around, you either know everybody or you know everybody. You know what I mean? And I think that's really cool. You know, because there's people that I know that I only knew from Facebook groups and stuff, and you respect them and you see them, and now you're able to talk and communicate like you've really been friends your whole lives, because you know something and enough about them and everything. I mean, Ada's a good example. You know, I knew Ada from Facebook and stuff for years before I ever met the guy, and And we talk all the time. I feel like we're good friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just stuff like that. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. I also dig the build off stuff, because that's in such a short period of time to see what those guys are doing. It's somewhat reminiscent of like old installer challenge days, and just kind of that thrash and that push to outdo each other. And that reminds me of that late 80s, early 90s competition vibe, and that we're going to push as hard as we can mentality that was, I'm past that. I'm over that. I don't want to do that anymore, but it's fun to watch the whippersnappers do it.
Absolutely. I remember the first Select Products installer challenge, and it was me, Jeremy Carlson, Ian up in Kansas City. He and Jeremy are good friends and used to work together. Nolan Minnie from New Orleans, and can't believe I can't think of his name now. Anyways, we had our team, and we did a complete trunk fiberglass build, painted everything, and I mean it was unreal. 48 hours, absolutely unreal. And our team was Thunder Buttons, and we had a great time. And then like the next year they incorporated an SPL build off, and so Jeremy and I took our sound quality install team, we did the SPL and won it.
Oh wow.
And what we did, which was pretty funny, because not many, I don't know if any SPL guy teams or guys at the time did what we did. But we took that van and we built a big box, and we with no back and no front, so it was just a big frame box about 4 layers of MDF thick. And then we built a baffle on the front for the woofers, and we divided it 2/3 to 1/3, mounted all the woofers into 2/3, and had this big door looking port. And then the back wall, we built it like 6 inches thick. It was literally like 10 layers of 3/4 inch MDF. And we had it where we could slide it all the way up and all the way back to adjust the volume of the box. So we just put it in there, and we ran test tones, and we found the test tone that was loudest, and we moved that thing back and forth until it was loudest. And we were done, like in no time at all. And I don't remember, and it was Sony product. I don't remember what the SPL was, but it was like 4 or 5 dB louder than the SPL guys.
That's awesome.
But I learned my lesson that those are for the birds.
That was probably back when 3/4 MDF was $12 a sheet.
Or less. Yeah. Yeah. Those were good times. And on the way, so this will date things, because guys use super glue and super T or zip kicker and stuff today like they started installing like babies drinking milk on that stuff. But at that time, that was an unheard thing. Between Tulsa and Daytona Beach, we stopped at probably 6 or 7 or 8 hobby shops at every major city, buying all their super glue and all their zip kicker. And that was in our secret box. We were allowed to have a little secret box. So our secret box was full of super glue, zip kicker, and our paint.
I feel like Gary Biggs had the most secret box of any installer challenge that ever existed.
Oh,
there was just so many secrets in there. There's a book from 0 AD of just tricks.
Hold on. Matt, have you ever had to go to the hobby store to get CA glue?
I have, yes.
Okay, good.
I have done that. So
we started building and stretching fiberglass, and we're gluing and stuff, and I mean, it was really amazing how many guys there were. Their eyes were like flying saucers. What is that? And then the next thing you know, like a week later, Rob Garza is selling super glue. Like I swear he still owes Jeremy and I royalties on that.
Yeah.
But those were good times. I mean, we had a good time. Jeremy's a good guy. I've known Jeremy for a long time. Goes all the way back before that.
Does he know about your Garth Brooks connection?
I think he does. We've talked about it before. I know he's in love.
Yeah, because I feel like he'd talk to you way more if he knew about your Garth Brooks connection.
Yeah. There's stories I probably can't tell. I gotta be careful who I incriminate.
How you holding up, Maddie? I know it's late. You're even an hour ahead of Gary. You good, or you want to?
We'll wrap it up.
We could probably talk all night.
Yeah, I mean, again, we can obviously. Have
It's
you back
easy
on
when
again.
you get there in the groove, and it's just all passion coming out.
We can always do another one. It's fun.
Add it to the greatest hits.
I don't think it's any coincidence that you and Andy will probably have had the longest podcast between all the different guests, which is probably why you guys were such a great match coming up with, the whole AudioFrog.
So the story with me and Andy goes back a long time ago. This goes back to, we didn't know we knew each other, but this goes back to, remember my customer Vince that I was talking about with the Mustang? Mm-hmm. When we started running around chasing contests, he had also built a car for a girl named Maggie Cry. And I think it was like a little Mazda MX-6 or something, if there was a such thing back then. I don't remember. And Maggie won everything. Now, this is when Andy was in El Paso working for Music Systems, which was, pretty legit. You know what I mean? It was kind of the speaker works of that part of the country, kind of like, up here we were, the speaker works of our part of the country. So Andy built her car. That was a big claim to of a competition car that he had. So she won everything in her area, and Vince would win everything up here in our area. And then once in a while they would cross paths and compete, and she'd beat him one time and he'd beat her the next time. And then later on, Andy went to work for Harman after he left Music Systems, and he was I'm not real sure his job title, like director of tech services for Infinity. I think he replaced Rich Cole at the time when Rich left, but it was Infinity. Then later on he took on the JBL brand. So we kind of knew each other, kind of like I knew who built Maggie's car. I think he kind of knew who built the car. But and then one time when Andy was at Infinity, he came to Car Toys, and I don't remember, he said something that was quirky. I'm like, this dude's a dipshit. You know what I mean? But little did I know I was the dipshit, because he knew what he was talking about. It was just something that I never knew of, never heard of, never been taught or told or whatever. And so when I realized what a dummy I was and how smart he was, I had a different appreciation for him. And we slowly become friends. And then as time went on, then we ended up working together. And he was a huge advocate of Harman hiring me. And, we're good friends. We've had our situations where we gripe and fuss at each other. He's really one of my, one of my better friends. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. He's forgot more than most people will ever know. Like a lot of guys.
How long is your average phone conversation with them?
The last time we actually talked was probably a couple months ago. It was probably a 15 or 20 minute call. But now at Master Tech, we hung out quite a bit. We drove around and I helped him. We went and rounded up some stuff, but we generally have pretty good conversation.
So my final question is, how bitter would you be if Andy calls you and he says, "Hey Gary, I just want to say I'm sorry, but we've discontinued the GB line of speakers." Okay? And you're like, "Andy, okay, so they're discontinued. What's the new line of speakers?" And he says, We're doing the AW speakers." How would you feel?
Honestly, it would not bother me any, to be 100% honest with you. And Andy does have some AW speakers in the Pro line of products that's available overseas. Not being sold here in the US.
This is groundbreaking news. And it's the Pro line.
Yes. Not the BS car audio stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, it's funny. People ask me all the time, "Hey, GB Gary Biggs," and it's funny. I honestly, you know what I mean. I no more, no less. Really, if he got to do what he wants to do or got to do, and
It is cool though. It is cool though that you have that kind of stamp, and you're just like, yeah, GB. That's me. I have my own speaker.
Pretty cool.
I like that.
Pretty cool.
it's it's probably the coolest with guys like that I went to school with. You know what I mean? Guys that they're doing their own thing and I'm doing my thing, and man, I'm real lucky. Just like having all these car audio friends around the country and the world, and all the things I got to do. I also have about 5 or 6 buddies from high school, and we're all really close still. In fact, one guy, I talk to him literally every day since high school, maybe multiple times a day. Wow. And most of the time, in fact, he was just sending me a message a while ago, we have an ongoing cut down fight. So as you can imagine,
for 35, 40 years.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure I'm winning. But we're great friends. I've been there for him through thick and thin. He's been there for me through thick and thin. We've got another handful of buddies. Anytime, it seems like lately it's, when somebody's parent passes or something like that is while we're more often getting together. But we all get together all the time. And a couple of these guys are coaches in high school. Some of them have their own small business, different things, and everybody's successful in their own ways. And these guys, they just shake their head and go, "Dude, you're still playing with car audio." You know what I mean? I'm like, you're right. I'm playing with car audio. It ain't like I'm busting hump working and doing all that. It's work, but it's different. It's just a different kind of work. I mean, I don't even know really how to describe it. What we do, we're so lucky. You guys, myself, all those guys that were at Master Tech and all the guys that didn't attend. Man, we're just, how lucky is it to really honestly do what we do? Because you know what? My dad was a brick and rock mason. That dude got up at the crack of dawn and was on the job site. And it could be cold outside, hot outside, raining outside, everything in between. And, he's out working in the elements. Mm-hmm. And that's the same for a lot of people's parents and people today. We don't have to do that. You know what I mean? We're lucky. We're so lucky. And, to work for a great company, you're lucky. And to work for a rep company and have great lines, you're lucky compared to, you could have a bunch of inferior products or whatever. And to be part of launching and creating a brand and it being successful, I mean, how cool is that? Mm-hmm. I mean, every company started that way at some point. But yeah, it's cool to be a part of that, to have been a part of that without a doubt. But it is what it is.
Got anything else, Gary Bell?
I don't. I'm speechless. How often am I speechless?
I feel like
covered a lot of ground.
Again, I feel like Gary Biggs is the most interesting man in car audio. I love it.
Well, I don't think it'll be the last time we have him on.
You're very sneaky, and the next time that I'm ever in another country, I'm going to be just scouring the rocks around me, just being like, I wonder what Gary needs for his collection.
Something the size of a golf ball.
Okay.
And and that's it. I like that stuff. I'm cool. I've got my stepsister. They were overseas in Egypt or somewhere not too terribly long ago, and she brought me back a couple rocks, one from the Great Sea and another one, and I mean just cool stuff. You know what I mean? But until somebody somebody can duplicate that, that's the prize piece right there. Yeah, I knew I was probably going to have to go to security or something going through checkpoint at the airport, but no, they never nothing.
Right on through.
I'm going to get arrested for chipping off the edge of the Notre Dame for Gary.
Right.
Next time I'm in Paris.
Yeah.
Matt and I are lucky enough that occasionally listeners send us bottles of whiskey to try out, and next thing you know, things are just going to start showing up.
Yeah. I was about to literally say the same thing. Because of this podcast, people are going to send you random rocks from all over the country, and
rocks in the mail.
We get bottles of whiskey from all over the country.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. So, like I said, my dad was a brick and rock mason, so he always had in the backyard like a rock garden, with different types of stones from different parts of the country, or this, Oklahoma, that people were building their homes with. So I don't know, maybe that's where I picked up that collecting thing or something. I don't know, but it's fun, it's cool, it's and it keeps you connected. You know what I mean? Keeps you connected.
So what would be your holy grail of stones?
Oh,
Either
man.
what, the moon or Stonehenge?
Hey, I could have a piece of Stonehenge in the backyard. No, so about less than a month ago, we had a huge meteor that came buzzing through our area.
Are you sure it wasn't a Boeing bomb? You ever seen Joe Dirt?
Yeah.
This is just a big old chunk of poopy.
Just a big old chunk. So people on their on their doorbell cameras, you could see that thing come streaking across the sky, and it came right above our neighborhood, but it actually landed about maybe 40 miles from here. And the guy found a piece of it about the size of a baseball. I was like, damn, I want that. I want that rock.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah.
I gotta text you. I feel like I've caught, it was like 4 years ago, I feel like I caught the greatest video of all time of a meteor streaking through the sky on my doorbell camera. I think it might be the best video that's ever existed of a meteor flying through the sky. It is spectacular.
Yeah, send it to me. Yeah, that's cool. That stuff, I like that stuff. I'm not really a extraterrestrial geek or nothing, but that stuff, I like it. It's kind of cool. Well, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun.
Thanks for spending a few hours with us.
Well, and sorry we spent all this time, but it was cool. It was fun.
Yeah.
Maybe the next time we have you on, we have Andy on at the same time, and we do kind of like we pull some quads, a quad podcast.
I was going to say that might
fun.
have to go on a weekend and might need to be turn into an 8-hour podcast.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
We could have it might have to be an R-rated version.
Podcast after dark.
Right, there you go.
No, it was definitely fun, and it was cool hearing all the stories. And I think you've been the most transparent out of all the old competitors we've had on, and you will always be the sneakiest man in car audio to me personally. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your openness to share those stories. That was fun.
I do think we will start questioning other competitors when they come on a little harder.
Yeah, just say, come on, we know better.
Yeah, the next time there's like a IASCA event, there's going to be somebody like Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad just walking through the car with the detector to see if there's anything recording.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
for
it's so
sure.
good. No, it was a lot of fun, and thanks for coming on and sharing your story. And you filled in another 10% of the old school car audio story, which has made what car audio is today. So we definitely appreciate that.
Absolutely. No, love it. It's what I do. I've never had another job. I mean, this car audio has been it. I did work at Burger King right after graduation for a little bit. That was fun. That was a fun job, but when they tell you if you take a hamburger, it's stealing. And if you do take one, make sure you take some water or soda to slug it down with, because a dry hamburger you can't make disappear very easily.
Duly noted.
Oh man. All right, guys.
Duly noted. All right, well, have a good evening, and cue the music.
All right, take care. Thanks.